ベビーメタルのメタラジオをお聞きの皆さん、こんばんは。スーメタルです。
モアメタルです。モモメタルです。
We are BABYMETAL。 東京 FM メタラジは私たちベビーメタルの3人が
BABYMETAL has done many things that simply no other metal band has done. And in 2025 they surprised, well, just about everyone I think, when they started their very own radio show, where the girls themselves would be the hosts. And in case this is in fact news to you, the radio show consisted of pre-recorded studio sessions wherein Su-metal, Moa-metal, and Momo-metal themselves would interview various guests, usually, but not always within the music world. Some of the guests they ended up having might actually really surprise you. The show began on January 4th, 2025, and aired on Tokyo FM every Saturday for 65 Saturdays, having its final broadcast on March 28th, 2026. The focus of the radio show was intended to connect more with their Japanese audience specifically, a subset of their fans that BABYMETAL had felt needed some attention, since so much of BABYMETAL's efforts in 2023 and 2024 had been internationally focused. Due to this decision to focus on a Japanese audience, the radio show did not offer subtitles or transcriptions in other languages, a rare misstep in my opinion on the part of BABYMETAL's marketing team. Like, how much could they stand to lose by offering the radio show in different languages? So this is where a friend of the fandom, BABYMETALTube, comes in. Huge shout out to BABYMETALTube, also known as Mercs from Colombia. They took it upon themselves to translate every episode of Metaraji into both English and Spanish, and post it up on YouTube for everyone to listen to. Please, after you are done with this video, go support them and show them some love. My hope is that after this video, if you haven't already watched BABYMETALTube's translated Metaraji videos, you go experience them in full over there. Because there is a lot of content for Metaraji to experience. Even with BABYMETALTube's amazing work translating all those subtitles, it's a lot to read. Hell, they made a whole book with the content, but yet again, Koba decided to insist upon us that learning Japanese was still mandatory. So, here's what I'm going to do in today's video. I went through every Metaraji episode and took the most notable highlights from each episode. Whether it was something interesting about the girls' lives or experiences, a peek behind the scenes of how things operate that we never get to see, a fun connection BABYMETAL makes with their guests, or just a funny moment that sticks out as classic BABYMETAL. I am putting it all in one video for you to listen to so that if you simply haven't found the time to sit down and read all those subtitles, or if you did but you would love to hear about it again, here is your one-stop shop for Metaraji. Just keep in mind that no matter how good this video turns out, nothing can replace just sitting down and listening to the girls chat away in real time. Structurally, I'm going to go chronologically through every episode, and I will narrate the script in a way in which you can listen without needing to look at your screen, since, well, you saw the runtime of this video. It's long, so I will be verbally indicating when the date changes, which episode we are on, and who the guest is each time it changes. And keep in mind, guests typically stick around for a few weeks at a time during the course of the show. To be extra clear, I will also play this little jingle between every episode so you know for sure when we have moved on to another episode. For those of you who choose to watch the video rather than just listening to it, don't worry, I will have visuals for you to enjoy, consisting of BABYMETAL posts, interview footage, or live shows that occurred on or around the date of whichever episode is currently being described during that part of the video. So, are you ready to headbang? In the first episode of Metaraji on January 4th, 2025, BABYMETAL did not bring any guests on. It was just the listener and the girls. In this episode, Su, Moa, and Momo explained that the initial motivator to create the Metaraji radio show was to rekindle a deeper connection to their Japanese fans, as 2023 and 2024 saw BABYMETAL spending the majority of their time abroad. As we go through the episodes and see the honored guests, you will soon realize that they are primarily Japanese guests, and that was an intentional and thematic choice. They also introduce a term in this very first episode, metatomo, or metal friends. As BABYMETAL goes through guests on the radio show, their intention is to make new metal friends, or metatomos, with each of their guests. Because if there is one thing BABYMETAL has been known for doing the past years in metal, it's making friends in the industry. This radio show will be a vehicle for that, and you'll see some of the guests have already worked with BABYMETAL in one way or another before, during, and after Metaraji concluded. After introducing the show, Sue asks the girls how they are feeling. And Moa says she is excited because she listens to a lot of radio herself. All of the girls express excitement for getting to speak in a format that is divorced from playing live shows and answering interview questions. Some fun facts we learn from episode 1. The girls mention that singer Tatsuya Kitani grew up listening to Bring Me the Horizon. While Kitani was not yet a guest on the show, they knew this because they shared the stage in September 2024 during a music station broadcast. These multifaceted connections are woven throughout BABYMETAL's history. They never stop making friends. Speaking of these connections, Metal mentions that Masamune from Spitz is also a metal fan. When I went to look up when they met, the only documented time was in 2016, so Metal has like at least a 9-year retention level for minor details of literal acquaintance-level interactions. This is actually good news for fans. That tells me Metal just might actually remember you if you are a repeat showgoer. Have you ever felt so appreciated? Also in this episode, the girls bring up how they did nearly 100 shows in 2023, and intended to do less in 2024, but still ended up doing over 60 shows that year. The girls also discussed how they filmed the music videos for Leave It All Behind and Ratatata, and also acted in their scenes for the film Heavier Trip that year as well. So quite a busy year despite intending to take it down a notch. Also, apparently, acting is the one thing that can make Metal nervous. When discussing their first time performing in South America, Sue Metal said the fans were so loud there that she could not hear herself singing in her own in-ear monitor. Which, if you have ever used one of those, you know how crazy that is. Last highlight from this episode before moving on, Sue Metal says she would like to meet Lisa, a famous rock star, also hailing from Japan. This will be important much later. In episode 2, airing January 11th, before bringing on their guests, Sue, Moa, and Momo have fun wondering if their listeners are able to tell their voices apart. And Moa, because of course it's Moa, says she is Metal just to joke with the audience listening. They go on to discuss the differences in their voices, and we get the first accusation from Metal pointing out that everyone always knows when Momo is talking, because Momo is loud. So in come BABYMETAL's first ever radio show guests, which are Mizyu and Kanon of Atarashii Gakko no Leaders. And here are some of the most interesting moments. Metal tells the AG girls that Sue, Momo, and her showed up early at Summer Sonic the previous year specifically to watch AG perform, because they're just supportive like that. Mizyu points out that Metal and her are both part of the Twin Tail Alliance. Mizyu also points out that lots of people who came to see them perform were wearing BABYMETAL merch, indicating a large fan crossover between BABYMETAL and AG. AG also points out that they don't listen to much metal and haven't worked much with metal artists. However, they did collaborate with Maximum the Hormone in 2024, so I think they're being at least a little modest. Lastly, for episode 2, I thought it was really fun how AG discussed their organic way of creating choreography for their music, since they don't use a choreographer, but create it together as a group. BABYMETAL, by contrast, talked about how they do contribute ideas for the choreographer to refine, but they don't do it by themselves. So episode 3 aired 1 week later, on January 18th, 2025. BABYMETAL had the other two members of AG on Metaraji, Rin, and of course, the other Suzuka, who quickly joked about how she is Su-Metal now. Suzuka of AG, or Suzuka number 2, if you will, discussed on the episode how reassuring it was for them to see other Japanese artists when performing overseas. It makes you remember that even though these girls are all professionals, when they're constantly surrounded by non-Japanese acts, it's probably easy to feel like the odd man out. Compounded by being a woman, so odd woman out. I love these humanizing moments, and I love that they get to meet each other out there on the road. Described by Suzuka number 2 as nice to meet you moments. AG and BABYMETAL soon thereafter devolve into food discussion, with AG pointing out how bread is everywhere. So they have to bring their own rice cooker and look for Japanese restaurants while on tour, while BABYMETAL admitted to snacking on a lot of sweets instead. Big surprise from the band who brought you Gimme Chocolate. But while BABYMETAL might be slacking in the healthy food department a little bit, they really showed up AG on their rest and recovery, when Suzuka number 2 revealed that she walked in and saw BABYMETAL has yoga mats and fascia release tools for recovery, neatly laid out. And BABYMETAL themselves revealed that they have their own massage therapists and trainers that go on tour with them. Hearing the girls are taken care of behind the scenes is always reassuring. Then, Suzuka Squared, Rin, Moa, and Momo all close out this episode acknowledging a simple truth about headbanging. It may not be good for your body, but it is good for your soul. Not unlike the candy that BABYMETAL loves to bring with them on tour. Another week went by and episode 4 of Metaraji featured all 4 AG members at once, after having them paired off in episodes 2 and 3. This would be the final broadcast of January. In the episodes with AG, BABYMETAL has selected certain topics from a box as a fun way to keep the conversation spontaneous, and they continue this trend in the January 25th episode. The first topic drawn was asking what one should do to prepare for a concert, to which AG insisted you must do stretches beforehand. And BABYMETAL encouraged fans to not bring a lot of things with you to the concert as to be able to move more freely and interact. Another fun thing we learned on this episode was that Suzuka No. 2 has broken dozens of her glasses, due to them falling off during performances. Though to prevent this, she now wears one of 20 different frames she can pick from, all with rubber ends, to prevent glasses from taking flight. I also thought it was funny that they outed Momometal as the one who asked questions about the glasses. This is also the episode where we learned that the girls use 4 layers of hair ties to keep their hair up during performances. The conversation continues with speaking about the choreography creation elements, and we get some rare behind-the-scenes intel informing us that Su-Metal has more ballet and jazz background, where Moa and Momo both are heavily influenced by K-pop. In episode 5 of Metaraji, airing on February 1st, 2025, we finally get our first fan mail. Now, before sitting down to make this Metaraji retrospective, I reached out on YouTube and X-Twitter to see if I could get a hold of some of the folks whose letters were read on the show. So for the folks that I got in contact with, I'll be including stories about their experience having their letter read, told directly by them. I could not find the fan who sent in the first letter, and they were quite young, so they rightfully did not identify themselves, outside of stating they were from Brazil, and they looked forward to the show every Saturday. In response to her nationality, Su-Metal decides to play their song Night Night Burn. And I simply have to play you the clip of her saying the song name because it is now one of my favorite Su-Metalisms.
Nai Nai Ban!
Alright, so down to the episode itself. The guest for this episode is Ozasa Daisuke from official Ige Dandism, or called throughout the episode, Ige-Dan. His work includes creating the theme for anime Spy X Family, Mixed Nuts. After introducing Daisuke, BABYMETAL reads a second fan letter from Kakure Metal Shitemasu-san, who specifically is a fan of both BABYMETAL and Ige-Dan, and wanted the bands to both become friends. Momometal even suggests that this fan letter had something to do with Daisuke being a guest on the show in the first place. So a little showbiz magic right there. Daisuke is then asked if he has ever listened to BABYMETAL's music before or seen them live, to which he reveals that he first saw them live at Countdown Japan 2019, when the two acts played back-to-back. Daisuke also gives heavy praise to one of his favorite bands, Polyphia, who of course collaborated with BABYMETAL twice now. Daisuke provides some interesting insight into Brand New Day, in which you can hear Tim Henson's guitar amp plugin by Archetype, which basically sounds like a vocoder. Literally what it does is add multiple independent harmony notes to a singular guitar note, giving it a very unique sound, and Daisuke says that they used Tim Henson's signature plugin on one of their own tracks called Subtitles. Last thing I want to note in this episode is that Daisuke mentions that BABYMETAL should collab with Arch Enemy, to which BABYMETAL reminded him they already have, though not when Angela was the singer, who Daisuke mentions by name. They collaborate with Elisa White-Gluss, who I finally heard say her own name and know that I have been mispronouncing it for years. Don't worry though, how I just said it is the correct way. The date is now February 8th, and episode 6 of Metaraji begins with continuing guest Daisuke speaking at length on his experience forming his own band with co-founder Satoh-chan. Speaking on how Satoh-chan was originally the drummer, and also how they both listened to metal specifically to improve as musicians. Daisuke also mentions how he still gets nervous showing songs he writes to the rest of the band. Su-Metal then reminds Daisuke that they had given him a homework assignment the previous week, to pick a song from his own band, Ige-Dan, that feels particularly metal. He chooses the live version of Fireground, and they proceed to listen to the song on the show. I went and listened to it, and it is indeed very metal, and I encourage everyone listening to go check it out later. I mean, the girls call it epic, amazing, and incredible. So who's gonna argue with that? You? The listener? Well, if you do need something more metal, after they play Daisuke's song, they play Needled 24/7 by Children of Bodom. And I am transported back to the 8th grade when I first heard that song. If you haven't heard that song, you should also add that to your playlist later. It is now February 15th, and we have finally arrived at Daisuke's final guest appearance on Metaraji. But before we get back to Daisuke, BABYMETAL opens another fan message from a girl living in South Korea, who expresses how much she would love for BABYMETAL to come back and play a show in Korea. At the time of this particular broadcast, BABYMETAL had not been back to Korea since their first show there in 2017 with Metallica. I wanted to highlight this particular fan message because it would turn out that BABYMETAL would end up playing in Korea later in September 2025, fulfilling this Korean girl's dream. I just had to include this wholesome moment, so if you are the girl who wrote that letter and are listening or watching to this video, we are all super happy for you. So, back to the episode. The first fun thing that Daisuke points out in this episode is how the band did a tour of Asia for the first time and noted a special difference in the fan reactions compared to his Japanese audiences. He says that for every song, people would just immediately cheer, even for the ballads. They would immediately go, "Ah!" And I could tell him sharing this, he was legitimately happy thinking about it. For a nice change of pace, Daisuke actually asks BABYMETAL a question about their music, asking about what the difference is between performing with Kami Band East versus Kami Band West. Sumetal goes on to describe Kami Band East as musicians who play very close to the CD version of the tracks, while the Western Kami Band has, in her words, an intense dynamic range. She specifically points out how loud Kami Band West drums are, and that they are so loud they don't need drum sounds in their in-ear monitors. I wasn't prepared for two different fun facts about things being too loud for in-ear monitors in this video, but here we are. Now, for this next exchange, I'm going to read the dialogue as if from a stage play because I don't think it's as funny if I just paraphrase the sentiment. So here we go. Sumetal. We work with a different crew when we tour internationally. At first, adjusting to that can be really tough. Some people are super precise, while others are really laid back. Sometimes they're like, oops, my bad, when mistakes happen. Moametal. Sometimes the in-ear monitors don't work at all, or the sound system just completely breaks down. Like, there's static noise the whole time, and you're like, what do we do? Daisuke. I'd love to hear more about your tour troubles. Moametal. Oh, like when a storm hit that time at the Download Festival? That was a shocking experience. Sumetal. There was a crazy lightning storm, so they told us it was too dangerous. Our start time got delayed. And then when we finally started, after just one song, suddenly we heard in our in-ears, "Stop!" They cut the sound, then they told us it was too dangerous to stay near the stage, so everyone had to go back to the dressing room. Just as we got there, they said, okay, it's safe now, run back to the stage, go, 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 go. Yeah, this whole exchange is so entertaining. I highly encourage you to watch the video version with subtitles on BABYMETAL Tube's channel, so you can hear their own voices as they describe it. Definitely my favorite moment in Metaraji thus far, and extra fun that we have footage of some of this happening in real time. So after they tell the story of their side of events at Download in 2024, Moa goes on to say that after the show they felt bad and just sat there going, ugh, we couldn't do it properly. Later on in the episode, Daisuke mentions that he loses his awareness on stage when a funny accident happens, and Moa says it's amazing that he can call it funny. So taking that along with how disappointed they were about the Download Festival debacle, I get that Moa and like Sue and Momo too probably feel a mini panic attack when things go wrong on stage because they just really want to put on a good show and take their jobs very seriously. That's how I took it anyway. But we really got to move on to the next episode because this one has been so content heavy already. Don't forget, you can always hear the parts I don't cover here on BABYMETAL Tube's YouTube channel. So for now, we have to say goodbye to Daisuke. Another Saturday arrives on February 22nd, 2025. And first off, I have to highlight how Moa says yay after Momo starts reading this episode's letter from Argentinian fan Valentina.
Yay!
Next, I gotta point out that we got a Momometal lore drop, where apparently Momo is a big collector of magnets. As she indicates, she bought many magnets while they were visiting South America, and Momometal makes it clear that Momo is a magnet otaku. So then BABYMETAL introduces their next guest for this episode, which is famous singer Tatsuya Kitani. This particular guest appearance is notable because it would plant the seed for BABYMETAL to 1 year later collaborate with Kitani on the intro song for anime Hell's Paradise, entitled A Faint Flower. But more importantly, they would go on All Night Japan Radio and play Beyblade with Kitani, which I do love as a moment even more than their song A Faint Flower. You have never heard the girls laugh quite this hard.
3, 2, 1, go shoot!
So let's take a look at this early interaction and how we got all of those future wonderful collaborations. So right off the bat, Kitani validates himself as a longtime Bring Me the Horizon fan, and mentions that this is how he first discovered BABYMETAL. Relatable, am I right? Kitani would later see BABYMETAL live at Music Station in September 2024, where he saw them perform one of his personal favorite BABYMETAL songs, Dot Dot Dance. So far, all of BABYMETAL's guests have gotten the chance to see them live prior to coming on the show, which is also likely one of the contributing factors to their being invited in the first place. Kitani spends some time describing how he first became a metal fan, saying that he would hear senior classmen in school discuss their favorite obscure metal bands endlessly, and he would secretly write them down and check them out on his own, to pick out the ones he thought were good. Kitani also glazes both BABYMETAL and Bring Me the Horizon by stating that they have both helped metal get more mainstream acceptance. Also, when you do go back and actually listen to these episodes, pay attention and you'll find that Momozill's favorite word is yay, because she says it in like every episode, multiple times.
もう用意してきました。
はい
はい。この質問箱
Last thing I wanted to include before moving on to the next episode is that Kitani credits metal music, specifically Dot Dot Dance by BABYMETAL, as a great motivator to get pumped up and get all of the dishes in the sink washed. This is actually great advice. If you hate doing dishes and haven't tried listening to metal music while you do them, you gotta try it. It's basically a cheat code. I do it all the time. Oh, okay, I lied. One more thing from this episode. After Kitani signs off, Momozilla remarks on how she couldn't stop staring at his lip ring. So, if you're asking yourself, how do I get Momozilla to notice me in the crowd at a concert? You have your answer. One week later, and it is now March 1st, 2025, and BABYMETAL are hot off the heels of their first 2025 concert at Knotfest in Melbourne, Australia. So please enjoy some footage of that show while this episode plays. Kitani is still our guest today, and BABYMETAL kicks off the episode asking Kitani what he thinks is the appeal of metal music. He focuses a lot on the passion metal fans have for their music and muses about how inspiring he finds it. He says, as artists for any kind of work, instead of people might not like it so let's not do it, they're like, no, I love this, so you should love it too. And that really does describe a lot of metal fans, doesn't it? We are vocal about the bands we love and love sharing them with other people. Later in the episode, Kitani talks a lot about how he composes songs, and Moa and Momo remark back to him how interesting it is, but poke a little fun at themselves about how they don't compose their own songs. This moment was nice though because Kitani took the opportunity to encourage them, saying he never thought he would be dancing, and he ended up doing that anyway, so maybe one day Momozilla can compose a song. To which Moa says she'll do her best. When talking about Vocaloid singers, we get a fun BABYMETAL lore drop and a behind-the-scenes one at that. The girls mention that Hatsune Miku is one they would consider from their generation, and that Su-Metal, when she goes to karaoke, has been known to sing the song Melt by Hatsune Miku. I just find it super charming to hear about these small details from a very hidden part of BABYMETAL's lives. You want them to have their privacy, so you don't want to know too much, but hearing just a little bit gives you that satisfaction as a fan knowing that they do in fact have that personal time to themselves to unwind. Later in the episode, Momozilla admits that if the girls did all write a song together, it'd probably be about fried chicken. That's not a paraphrase. I promise. She actually says this. Episode 10 of Metaraji begins on March 8th, 2025, the very same day of BABYMETAL's last show in Australia, before taking a break in advance of their UK and Europe arena tour. This will be the final episode of Metaraji with Tatsuya Kitani, but the first episode of Metaraji with a 22-year-old Momozilla, which is pointed out by Momozilla as they read the message for that episode. In case you don't know, Momo's birthday is March 3rd, and it occurred between this episode and the last. The first notable tidbit in this episode, Momozilla speaks on what makes an artist metal or not. She mentions that BABYMETAL call themselves a metal dance unit, and in their way, they are metal because they choose to be. She acknowledges that some people still consider them idols, and she accepts that perspective, though it is not the way she would describe herself. Then they go on in the episode to talk about how Metallica and Judas Priest both praised BABYMETAL for creating a new genre of metal. Momozilla says that recognition from legends like these is more than enough for them. I also really enjoyed how Sumetal called them gentle old grandpas, a term Kitani also very much enjoyed.
おじいちゃんみたいな感じで。
そうだね。
優しいおじいちゃん。
We have spent a lot of time with Kitani, so I'll just mention one last thing I really liked about the episode, which is that Kitani and Momozilla mention the band Attack Attack, specifically the song Stick Stickly, and it warms my little high school emo heart to hear them bring up that song in 2025. And like Kitani says in the episode, you do in fact need to watch the music video for Stick Stickly. Kitani leaves Metaraji promising to return when they do their future Metaraji event. But as we know now, he would go on to do more than one thing with BABYMETAL. The date is March 15th, 2025, just a few days before BABYMETAL would announce their North America tour dates for that year, and with their previous guest Tatsuya Kitani now gone, their new guest is Takahiro Moriuchi, who quickly embraces his new metal name, Taka Metal, though his fans know him simply as Taka. Taka is the singer for the hugely successful Japanese rock band One OK Rock, and he met BABYMETAL at least as far back as 2016, at Download Festival, otherwise known as the first time BABYMETAL didn't have to sneak into the Download Festival. Momozilla does point out, however, that they likely met even earlier than that, and Taka agrees, reminding them that they were all at the same agency, Amuse. Taka begins the interview admitting that he doesn't listen to much metal these days. For me personally though, he does redeem himself the moment he mentions that he really loves Disney songs. Taka talks about how he would take walks in Disneyland just for a stroll, and the girls' reaction proves that they like a little bit of Disney themselves. No surprise there. Sumetal asks Taka to choose a song to play, and he chooses Breaking the Habit by Linkin Park, a band that he mentions had a huge impact on him. Speaking of Linkin Park, here is Momozilla saying Chester's name. Taka spends some time talking about how he endeavored to not follow the same path as other Japanese artists, where he could have stayed in Japan and been successful there, but rather he wanted to go overseas and conquer that first. He also remarks on how spending time overseas eventually caused him to want to remain even more Japanese rather than convert to the ways of other countries. He wants to share his Japanese culture with the world, and I think that's an awesome way to view it. It's March 22nd now, and BABYMETAL recently had to announce the addition of a second San Francisco show due to demand for North American tour date tickets. The girls begin as always by reading another letter, and this time they remark directly for the first time about how strange but cool it is that letters are reaching them from international fans. From BABYMETAL's perspective, they are just broadcasting in Japanese to a Japanese audience, but it does appear, at this point at least, that they have caught wind of the translating efforts of fans like BABYMETAL Tube into other languages. So Taka returns this episode as a continuing guest and speaks about how he grew up in a family of musicians, and Momozilla points out that 2025 is the 20th anniversary of One OK Rock. In this episode, BABYMETAL and Taka speak a lot about learning to sing in English and how different it is. Taka mentions that an early song he learned to sing in English was Wondering by Good Charlotte, and also that he would go to CD stores like Tower Records and listen to songs for hours. Taka says he would sleep with disposable chopsticks in his mouth to help train himself to get used to opening his mouth more horizontal, as that, he says, helps you adapt from singing in Japanese to singing in English. After all, Sumetal reminds us that there are sounds in the English language that simply do not exist in Japanese. Taka then gives his best attempt at pronouncing an English word he still has trouble with, namely the word literally.
Literally.
To close this episode out, I have to mention that when asked what one should do with foreigners to connect more with them, Taka's advice, it turns out, is play cornhole and beer pong with them, even if you don't understand why it's fun. And just so y'all know, while Momozilla did admit she never played beer pong, she did excitedly share that she has played cornhole before. And it's just really funny hearing Japanese folks marvel at these games that seem quite mundane and ordinary to myself, an American. It is now March 29th, and we are right on the heels of Fox Day 2025, when an onslaught of BABYMETAL promotions, announcements, singles, and tours would soon fill the rest of the year. But before all that, we have our final Metaraji episode with One OK Rock singer Taka. They discuss the difference in how their band names are pronounced in Japan versus abroad. For One OK Rock, which is the way I have admittedly been pronouncing it myself, in Japan they say it something more like
ワンオクロックという。
And BABYMETAL has a similar issue where, as I always say in every video, BABYMETAL is the way many Americans say their band name, but originally it's supposed to be
ベビーメタル。
What I will say is that given how hard the girls have worked to improve their English, it certainly couldn't hurt for us fans to try once in a while to pronounce things the Japanese way from time to time, no? Taka then tells of how his experiences on tour have improved as time has gone on, having better tour buses and showers at venues. But he did share one not-so-great experience where hot water did not work in one of the venue showers, and while he was shivering in the cold, a cockroach crawled across his leg. And as he told his story, the girls shriek in horror. I'll close out this episode with highlighting that when Taka asked BABYMETAL which guest they would like to have on the show, Moa quickly says, Ed Sheeran.
エド・シーラン。
エド・シーラン
Who is in fact a self-proclaimed huge BABYMETAL fan, admitting this on Music Station in 2021. Anyway, here's the girls doing a drum roll with their mouths to lead us into the next episode. It is now April 5th, and just days prior, BABYMETAL celebrated Fox Day 2025, with numerous announcements of new concert and tour dates across the world, but also, notably, the upcoming release of their next studio album, Metal Fourth, the promotion that would dominate 2025 for BABYMETAL. On this 14th episode of Metaraji, I'd like to give a special shout out to Mauve Sakurai, who is the individual who provided the artwork for BABYMETAL Tube's Metaraji videos, starting with this 14th episode. So please go visit her on X and Instagram and tell her how awesome her artwork is, because it is. So, moving on to the episode itself. After BABYMETAL plugs their upcoming fourth studio album, they introduce their guest who will be with them for a whopping 4 episodes, Tak Matsumoto, Grammy award-winning guitarist who also collaborated with BABYMETAL on their song DAIDAI Dance. The girls begin by asking Matsumoto if he has spoken much on radio shows before, and apparently he worked at that very radio station, Tokyo FM, for 8 years. Moa-Metal, our interview MVP, brings up that the first time Matsumoto and BABYMETAL met was at Ozfest Japan in November 2015. Then Moa says that this is when Matsumoto was invited to do DAIDAI Dance with BABYMETAL. From being invited to putting the song out, DAIDAI Dance took nearly 4 years to be born fully to this world. Su-Metal asks if it's the guitars that cause Matsumoto to like a song or not, and he says yes, but also the singer. He then says his favorite singer is the singer of Deep Purple, David Coverdale, a singer Moa-Metal has definitely heard of before, judging by her tone here.
デビッド・カバデールが一番好きなんだよね。
デビッド・カバーデールさん。
Good save, Moa. On to April 12th, 2025. Now, when Matsumoto joins back in, the girls ask him about how he got started in music, having picked up the guitar at age 15. And he went through his 43-year history, beginning as a session musician at the age of 20. Did that for 7 years and then formed his band Bees. After all this time playing music, Matsumoto still finds it exciting to create new songs. We have been brief with this episode, but we have a lot to get to, and still 2 more episodes with Matsumoto. If you want some more personal history of his, go check out episode 15 on BABYMETAL Tube. It is now April 19th, and for episode 16, the message that BABYMETAL gets from Chi-Metal-san implores them to tell us all their favorite anime. This might be one of the earliest signs, at least since Momo joined, that told us who the biggest anime fan of the bunch was. And it is definitely Moa. Moa immediately says she has tons of favorites, and then, with a hopeful voice, looks to Sue and Momo. You two don't watch much? There's a pause, and Momo says, not really. Momo talks about how she sees what the popular animes are and is aware of them, but she doesn't really know a lot about them. Then Moa turns to Sue to see if she can give her anything here, or if she is going to leave her hanging, as the only anime fangirl here. Sue does admit that she doesn't watch much, but she really enjoys educational anime, really showing her nerd, and says she loves Cells at Work, which is actually a pretty solid anime. This is probably the only time I've seen someone refer to Cells as adorable, and I am still wondering how Su-Metal, the girl who told us don't think, feel, specifically wants to only watch educational anime. And I still feel bad for poor lonely Moa sitting all alone in her anime fandom in the middle of the Tokyo FM studio. If you have seen the Crunchyroll interview they do much later, you'll already know that Moa was the only one doing much talking about anime. But the signs were there. So let's give Moa a chance to shine with her favorite anime as she tells us about Fire Force, an anime she feels has a Baby Metal vibe. And as Baby Metal Tube's notes tell us, apparently the author of the manga is actually a Baby Metal fan himself. Moa Metal also tells us to check out Akatsuki no Yona, an anime about a princess striving to be strong, though Moa admits she has read more of the manga than seen the anime. So people, if you want to read and watch what Moa reads and watches, you have the information you need. Anyways, anime really took over this episode, huh? Su-Metal finishes off the message sent from Chi-Metal encouraging them to not be concerned with the future, as both success and failure are nourishment, and she hopes Baby Metal keeps them going. Then, Baby Metal plays From Me to You for the listeners for the third time in 3 weeks, which I found quite funny, as of course they are prepping everyone for their upcoming appearance with Poppy on stage with them that no one knew about just yet, though it was suspected, being that they would both be at the same show. Anyway, I swear, Matsumoto is still here, and they discuss on the show that he was present at Baby Metal's first US Arena show at the Forum in California, where Matsumoto was seen by them wearing a Baby Metal t-shirt, which he says he wears often. We'll now head into Matsumoto's last episode. It is April 26th, and Matsumoto's last guest appearance after hanging out with Baby Metal for a whole month. Though anime discussion did take center stage there for the third episode, at least for a moment. Baby Metal brings up that similarly to the South American fans, their Mexican fans also are truly loud at shows and make them feel, in Sue's words, the "we're waiting for you" feeling. Anyway, you're not going to believe this, but Baby Metal goes ahead and plays From Me to You a 4th time in a row on the radio show. If Matsumoto is hearing the song too every time, I gotta wonder if he wishes they would play something else. But it's cool, you gotta promote the new single. So this episode is a questionnaire special, so I'll just share some of the things that Matsumoto shares about his experiences, all of which were asked by Baby Metal's own written down questions. What's his favorite food? Doesn't have one, though he prefers fish over meat. What was weird about living abroad? Nothing seems to run on time. Does Matsumoto-san have 9-string guitars or flying Vs? No, and yes. What does Matsumoto do on his days off? Watches movies. He says he doesn't really do much. And we close out this Metaraji episode with another yay and a drum roll. We have entered the month of May in 2025, specifically May 3rd. So Baby Metal has not quite yet begun their UK and European tour shows just yet. So for their last Metaraji episode during their break period, we welcome guests Yoshiaki Tanabe, guitarist of Macaroni Enpitsu, and Hattori, the other guitarist and vocalist. For their episodes, I will refer to them with their given metal names, Hana Metal and Yoshi Metal, to aid in my American struggle of trying to correctly pronounce Japanese names. And if you're wondering where the name Hana Metal comes from, in the name Hattori, he gave himself this name because Hana means nose, and he thinks he has a big nose, which he actually seems to like, so I think it's okay for me to use that. Their band is a prevalent rock band in Japan, often compared to the likes of official Ige Dandism. Hana Metal and Yoshi Metal begin by telling the girls that they got into metal through their parents, one through their dad and the other Yoshi Metal through their mom. They also bring up how they played at a concert hall called Rock Meikan, where Baby Metal also performed in 2012 and 2020. Thanks again to Baby Metal Tube for their stupendous notes on that topic. When asked what song they should play on the show that day, Hana Metal suggested Breaking the Law by Judas Priest. After the song plays, Sue Metal tells them she got to sing it with Rob Halford, and they are surprised, so I guess I actually didn't know that. And it was just a crazy coincidence that they decided to play that song. And of course, Mo Metal is quick to point out that she also played a flying V guitar for that performance. Alright, I thought this story by Hana Metal was really funny, but I feel like I need to narrate it as he does, kinda like I did for the Download Festival story a few episodes back, so this is the story of how Hana Metal and Yoshi Metal met. Hana Metal. Black Hole was a building dedicated to rock and pop. If you went there, you'd always meet people. And in Yoshi Metal's case, he always carries his flying V with him, propping it up next to him in class in a leather jacket with long hair, and he played in a metal band. I realized right away, he must be a true Michael Schenker fan. I love him too. So I deliberately sat in front of him in class and played UFO's Rock Bottom on my Stratocaster to catch his attention, rather than speaking to him directly. I was waiting for Yoshi Metal to come over thinking, hey, you like metal too? But when class ended, he went home. Anyways, he ended up chasing him down and they formed a band together. I just thought it was super funny that HANAMETAL went through all of that subtlety just for YOSHIMETAL to leave and not notice. Let's move on to the next episode. It is now May 10th, and BABYMETAL is all set to perform their first show of the UK Europe tour of 2025. So this is a great time to mention that these Metaraji episodes are recorded in advance, and it's difficult to pinpoint exactly when or how far in advance, but I certainly don't think they were recording this episode hours before they would need to get ready to perform. Additionally, that May 10th performance would be the live debut of Song 3, so Momozilla needs her rest. Being that this is what was going on during the day, I will still show that footage for B-roll since I have generally been following the air date of the episode for whatever events were taking place at the time. But, more excitingly, this Metaraji episode, we have our first known fan Metaraji message reading. Today's message is from BABYMETAL on X Twitter and TikTok. Her message says this: I can't wait for the arena tour in Frankfurt on May 16th, and I love learning your choreography and posting it to my TikTok. I love you all. In response, BABYMETAL made posts online and shared how much it meant to her, also sharing a picture of the sign she made to show BABYMETAL that her message was the one they read on the show, which BABYMETAL themselves suggested she do in response. So BABYMETAL went out of their way to tell BABYMETAL, hey, make a sign so we can see you. I think I speak for everyone when I say that we're all jealous of BABYMETAL right now. Thank you to BABYMETAL for supporting BABYMETAL. Now, on to the episode. Continuing with HANAMETAL and YOSHIMETAL as the guests, YOSHIMETAL says he acquired Michael Schenker's Flying V guitar at an auction and was able to receive it directly from him after being the one to win the auction. I don't think I've said it yet, but Michael Schenker was also a guitarist for the Scorpions in their early years before joining the band UFO. When YOSHIMETAL got to meet him, the encounter brought him to tears, but he was able to tell him that he had played guitar all this time because of his admiration for Michael Schenker. Later, YOSHIMETAL tells another story about how he was drinking at a Japanese pub called an izakaya before a festival, and someone next to him told him, I go every year, but not this year, because a band called Macaroni Enpitsu is closing the festival. YOSHIMETAL said he almost spat out his drink when he heard this, but did turn to say, hey, I'm their guitarist. After that, HANAMETAL asked the girls who their favorite oshidasa would be, which is a term that essentially means someone you think is really cheesy, but also really cool, taken from the Japanese terms oshi and dasai. Momozilla answers with the obvious: Electric Callboy, who she says are incredibly cheesy in the best way. Specifically, the girls point out the way Electric Callboy dances, which is very reminiscent of that behind-the-scenes interview with BABYMETAL for the making of the Ratatata music video, where they ask Momo whether she thought Electric Callboy were good dancers, and she gives the Momozilla Diplomacy Masterclass. If you don't know what I'm talking about, just search on YouTube, Momozilla Diplomacy Masterclass. Let's move on to episode 20. Episode 20 of Metaraji aired on May 17th, 2025, and YOSHIMETAL and HANAMETAL continue telling the girls about their lives, focusing in on their school days and college years in this episode. At a point, Momozilla asks them what they think they would be doing if they hadn't met in college, and they both say that they'd still be doing music. Then, HANAMETAL goes into depth on the struggle of balancing how to make songs that make you go, what's this, versus making songs that are more accessible that can be used more easily for setlists, and tie-ins like anime intros. It's the classic struggle an artist goes through trying to balance their creativity and what they think people will actually want to hear. Afterward, Momozilla asks HANAMETAL and YOSHIMETAL if there's anything they would like to ask them. They ask them about their experience at the Wembley Arena in 2016, a performance that YOSHIMETAL watches with his older brother often, who is a huge BABYMETAL fan. SUMETAL takes charge on this question, bringing up how their performance at O2 Academy Brixton 2 years prior had given them a lot of confidence. So when it came time to play Wembley Arena, even though the capacity was double, she had no fear. Though she did bring up how there was no audience reaction for the first few songs they played, which they had experienced overseas before, but not in an arena setting. So basically, if you ever see footage of BABYMETAL's show where it looks like the audience is just dead in the water, yeah, BABYMETAL sees you and notices when you don't give the energy back. Of course, SUMETAL does say that by the end of the Wembley Arena show, everything was better, and she still remembers that performance to this day in a positive light. Sadly, Momozilla then shares that after the show, this is the one time she cried after a concert. Momozilla says she had made a mistake and felt she couldn't give the audience a show at 100% just because of this one tiny mistake. She realizes now that this is just what live shows are and it's fine, but she says at the time after the show she was so frustrated that it brought her to tears. But don't worry, Momozilla states, she will never cry again. We can now move on to the final episode with these guests. On May 24th, 2025, BABYMETAL is now more than halfway through their UK and Europe tour, and just a few shows away from their headlining show at the O2 Arena. BABYMETAL receives a letter from a Mexican fan, and I really enjoy how carefully Momozilla pronounces the city they are from.
Guadalajaraから. Guadalajara.
The fan says that they are learning Japanese, so the girls give them a phrase to practice, which is otsukare. Otsukare is like saying good job after doing something, so BABYMETAL then asks listeners to all say otsukare after they finish performing live. Moving on to the last remarks of Yoshimetal and Hanametal, Hanametal starts the episode by talking about how composing songs for other artists is actually less restrictive for him than writing his own in his own band. Since his fans expect a certain thing, but when he writes for others, he can explore anything. Speaking of writing for others, BABYMETAL, Hanametal, and Yoshimetal begin discussing the idea of writing a song together, something they all expressed interest in. As of the time of writing the script, there has not been a collab yet, but perhaps one is in the works. Then, they play a music video on air for the song Supersonic Samurai by Victorious, and Hanametal remarks that it reminded him of Buzz Lightyear. So I had to go see what he was talking about, and yes, if you go to 1 minute 25 seconds of the music video, the samurai in the music video literally jetpacks into the sky exactly like Buzz Lightyear. And just like the Supersonic Samurai, Hanametal and Yoshimetal would fly off into the sky after their time on Metaraji. Next up, we will have a very notable Metaraji episode. So, episode 22. We're finally here, at the most viewed and listened to Metaraji episode on its entire run, at least on BABYMETAL Tube's YouTube channel, sitting at nearly 30,000 views as I write this. This episode has a very special guest, in the form of Demon KAKKA, of the band Seikimatu, known in this episode as Demo Metal. He is known across Japan as the frontman of his band, yes, but also a sumo commentator and voice actor. Demo Metal is a man who stays in character much of the time. Even more so, perhaps, than in BABYMETAL, and for the Metaraji episode, they managed to stay mostly in character, playing at a cosmic rivalry between BABYMETAL and Seikimatu. The exchanges between them are so much fun and really can't be expressed well by me sitting here narrating them, but essentially, Demo Metal and BABYMETAL banter back and forth about who is superior, how to use metal music, and who can live longer. For instance, Demo Metal says his life expectancy is 5.67 billion years, to which Momozilla quickly retorts that theirs is 6 billion, trying desperately not to break character, as Demo Metal points out that they obviously just made that number up to be higher than his. When Demo Metal asks Moa if she got that number from Kitsune-sama, their god, she says that she will tell Kitsune-sama that it is so. So I guess Momozilla is the fox god now. And apparently her first act as the new fox god after extending her own lifespan, she says in this episode, she's going to break the merchandise she purchased when seeing Seikimatu in April just a few weeks before this episode aired. Demo Metal protests, saying, "Didn't you buy it yourself?" But Momozilla says, "I bought it, but I'll break it." And Momo as well says, "Do it." Of course, this is all in good fun. Then Demo Metal asks them what BABYMETAL thought of them at their show. And this next part is why this episode is the most viewed on BABYMETAL Tube's channel. Around 6 minutes and 30 seconds into the episode, that can be found on BABYMETAL Tube, Momometal becomes Momozilla live on air, and she uses her death growl to mock the great Demo Metal, saying that he looked bad and pale on stage. And reminded him that he got 0 points when being rated by Burn Magazine, who said they were not metal. This was 40 years ago, but I suppose that's like yesterday for demons who lived for billions of years, so Demo Metal is probably still crusty about it. It's important to point out that Momo does this entire section of the radio stream in her death growl, which lasts about a minute or two, but this small section of episode 22 of Metaraji became the standard proof for anyone suggesting Momo wasn't doing the death growls for BABYMETAL. Here she was, unedited and unfiltered, improvising a whole conversation with her death growl. So, if you're wondering why the views are higher on this episode, it's definitely because of this. Breaking back into the mortal world separated from the fun stage personas, we fans heard this episode with the context that BABYMETAL and Seikimatu had something in common. As brought up, Seikimatu was called Not Metal when they started 40 years ago, and likewise, the same happened and still happens to BABYMETAL. So in reality, they share similar struggles. so it only made sense for BABYMETAL to perform with Seikimatu, which they would, on August 30th and 31st. And this Metaraji episode was in part a promotion for that upcoming event. After plugging their upcoming performance together, Momozilla has just one question for DAIDAI. What does he normally eat? I assume she's asking, as he is not of Earth. He mentions not being into fatty foods lately, to which Momozilla basically says, booyah, as they can still handle it and have strong stomachs. BABYMETAL mentions that they'll eat apples backstage while performing, but DAIDAI says he doesn't like how the skin gets stuck in his mouth from earlier when he tries to sing. Still not as bad as having black beans before you go up there, though. You ever find out you had a black bean stuck in your tooth all day after hours of people seeing you and not saying anything? No? Just me? Okay. Anyways, we also find out that even a demon like KAKKA sleeps in pajamas, which Momozilla found quite cute. And then, just as suddenly as Demon KAKKA appeared, he vanished. And unlike other guests, DAIDAI would not return the next day. Instead, we would have some even crazier rock stars coming. June 7th, 2025. BABYMETAL's headlining O2 Arena show has come and gone, and the North American tour is on the horizon. We have some crazy guests coming on, but before we get to that, BABYMETAL receives a message from a fan. It is 22-year-old Taiwanese fan who many of you know, ANImetal. Annie's message reads as follows. Good evening, BABYMETAL. As a foreign fan, I was originally only interested in BABYMETAL among all Japanese bands. In particular, I didn't know anything about male bands. I'd hardly heard their names. But through Metaraji, I got to know TANImetal, Atarashii Gakko no Leaders, and DAIDAI. And I'm really happy. And the best part is that I also got to learn so much more about BABYMETAL. I thought they were really cool, but when TANImetal talked about Vocaloid, they seemed like otakus and looked super adorable. In response to her message, Sumetal, Annie's favorite of course, said she was glad to think that they were giving listeners the chance to discover new things. So, how did Annie react to her message being read on the show? Well, I reached out because Annie is the bomb, and she offered her story to be shared here, so I'll read it as she wrote it, and we'll include some videos and pictures that she provided, so if you're just listening, feel free to glance over at the screen for this one. And Annie, if you're listening, I'll add a few clarifying words to your story for listeners, only to indicate when you're referencing a video or a picture. ANImetal. Episode 23 aired on June 7th, which happened to be the same day as my university graduation ceremony. I was at my graduation ceremony that morning, and later that evening I was out shopping with my friends. So I didn't listen to Metaraji live. Then, all of a sudden, I started getting messages, and one of my friends even called me to tell me that my message had been read on the show. My mind just went completely blank in that moment. This is the video my friend recorded at the time, although I cried so much I looked terrible. To me, it felt like the best graduation gift I could have ever received. What made it special is that my message wasn't a long love letter to Sue or anything like that. I was simply sharing how because of BABYMETAL, I started discovering other Japanese artists and bands, such as Atarashii Gakko and Tatsuya Kitani, along with many other kinds of music. I'm really grateful to BABYMETAL for opening the door for me to explore so many different artists and genres. Later, I showed them this sign I made for them at their concert in Taiwan, and this video here was the reaction from all three of them. The sign I was holding said, "I'm Annie from Taiwan, the one whose message was read on Metaraji." Alright, so that's the end of ANImetal's direct words about it, and I'd be lying if I said the story didn't make me tear up a little. So happy for her. If you do want to check her out, she asked that I simply include her artwork Instagram, which I'll display on screen here, which is at Annie_metal_TW. Wow, and just like that, this is the longest episode segment intro, and I haven't even told you who the guests are for this June 7th radio broadcast. Ladies and gentlemen, have you heard of Maximum the Hormone? If not, you simply must check them out. All 4 members of Maximum the Hormone appeared on episode 23 of Metaraji, and would remain there for 3 episodes. Maximum the Hormone is known for being a defining metal group from Japan, and is probably heavier than a lot of your playlist. But they also have a habit of genre bending as well, so definitely check them out. As mentioned in episode 2, Maximum the Hormone did collaborate also with Atarashii Gakko. Anyways, Maximum the Hormone crashed into the studio louder than any previous guests and had BABYMETAL laughing right out the gate, with Daisuke, their vocalist, doing his best Demon KAKKA impression. Maximum the Hormone does get metal names, and while I think it will be confusing to use them in this format, I did think it was quite charming that Ryo and Now got the names Brother Metal and Sister Metal, while the others' metal names essentially translate to Bony Metal and Noodle Metal. For the purpose of following along about who's talking, the members of Maximum the Hormone are Daisuke, the vocalist, Ryo, the guitarist, Uehara, the bassist, and Now, the drummer. And just so we're clear, Ryo and Now are brother and sister. And also, something else to know, they all sing sometimes in the band. It's a great time, and there's no band out there quite like Maximum the Hormone. Momozilla takes the lead as usual and says that they first met Maximum the Hormone at Summer Sonic 2017, where they took a picture together. If I'm able to find it, I'll put it up on the screen. But they actually saw them unofficially at a 2013 show where Moa remarks how impressed she was at how hard Maximum the Hormone was going on stage despite the heat. Also, apparently Now ran into Moa in the public bathroom and Now thought, someone brought their daughter in here? Since this episode has gone on so long, let's just cover a few more things before moving on to the next episode. First, Maximum the Hormone's fan base is collectively called Harapeko, which means starving. Maximum the Hormone, like BABYMETAL, points out that South American fans are indeed the loudest and most hype. Maximum the Hormone is a big fan of doing call and response with the crowd, also very similar to BABYMETAL. While in Florida, Maximum the Hormone tried to go to Disney World, and after a long time in traffic, they finally arrived, only for Ryo to realize he forgot his wallet at the restaurant they'd just eaten at, and Now said he totally went pale. They were able to get his wallet back, but they sadly did not go to Disney. When asked what they do on their days off, Uehara says that he dedicates his time to drifting. And when Moa Metal doesn't understand what he means, he goes on to explain how one drifts in Mario Kart. And all of a sudden he became my favorite person. And lastly, many years ago, Ryo said his friend told him a group had asked him to compose a song, like Koi no Mega Lover, a song by Maximum the Hormone that released in 2006. That song that guy was making was Doki Doki Morning, and that friend was Nori Metal, the person behind many BABYMETAL songs. So Maximum the Hormone is directly responsible for much of the inspiration of Doki Doki Morning, and therefore BABYMETAL themselves. Now, we must move on to the next episode. We finally move on to another episode airing on June 14th, 2025, the same day BABYMETAL played at Irving, Texas, as now their North American tour has begun. A message comes in from Moa Metal, asking if her stuffed white seal named Shirotan has any use to her besides just being adorable. To which she responds, it is 80% adorable and 20% a pillow, which she tucks between her neck and head while traveling. Now, on to our esteemed Maximum the Hormone guests. Since we spent so much time on the previous episode, I will make this one a little bit more brief. Remember, there's always more where this came from over on BABYMETAL Tube's channel. Maximum the Hormone discusses their history a bit and how the addition of Ryo into the band changed their sound into what it is today. The current lineup of Maximum the Hormone has been the same since 1999, and Ryo makes most of the music these days and has become a prevalent vocalist in the band too, despite not being the assigned lead. Maximum the Hormone discusses some more of their history and stresses that, with them, there's always a strong fan connection. Something that is very BABYMETAL too. Or is BABYMETAL very Maximum the Hormone? It is now June 21st, 2025, and getting right into it, I had to do a double take while reading the subs for this episode because Ryo said that there was a time when they would hold concerts specifically for fat people and for skinny people. And all I could wonder was, how do you market these shows? Little did I know that their shows would get even stranger. There was a show where they had everyone who showed up bite down on garlic as they came in. Maximum the Hormone members would actually go over and do a smell check to make sure that fans had actually acquired garlic breath before entering the show. You really can't make this up. They did state that they had to stop doing these types of ideas for shows though, as it got too dangerous. Almost as unexpected, apparently now, Maximum the Hormone's drummer has been friends with Perfume for years, and she performed with them in a custom outfit. Perfume, of course, are kind of like BABYMETAL's idol moms, so everyone continues to be connected. Now I have to mention the song they play for this last episode, the collaboration Maximum the Hormone did with strangely awesome idol Ano-chan. I personally had become interested in Ano when she came out with her music video for Picturesque Hero, which was composed by Pale Dusk's DAIDAI. But then, when I saw her on stage with Maximum the Hormone singing the song Choo Choo Lovely Moony Moony, Ano became a new personal favorite of mine. She is absolutely nuts. But are you ready for a BABYMETAL lore drop? Momozilla shares that based on where they will be performing, they often practice and rehearse wearing masks to increase endurance. Next, BABYMETAL asks if Nao and Ryo fight a lot, being siblings in a band together. Nao tells a very funny story. In their household, there is an unspoken rule where there should always be cooked rice, and whoever finishes the rice must make more rice for the next person. One day, Nao came home with some ramen and wanted some rice to put into it, something Momozilla also does, by the way. But when Nao went to get rice, it was all gone, and everyone said, Ryo ate the rice. So Nao goes over and tells Ryo to make the rice, damn it, and Ryo, watching TV, says, no, you do it. And they ended up getting into a fight, and they say they almost ended the band right then and there. Though that probably is just kidding around. BABYMETAL and Maximum the Hormone close out their time together, geeking out about food, and it becomes clear that if they were all at a party together, the food would be so good, but gone so quick. It's episode 26 of Metaraji. The date is now June 28th, 2025. And we'll get right to our guest this time, whose name I will say once, and then gladly switch to their much easier to pronounce metal name. Her stage name is Kyary Pam Pam, hereafter referred to as Ribbon Metal, because she always wears ribbons, and is a Japanese singer and model known for her Harajuku style. Right off the bat, after giving her her metal name, BABYMETAL asks if Ribbon Metal has listened to BABYMETAL, to which she says not only does she listen to them, but Doki Doki Morning was her alarm, which is incredibly appropriate, since the song literally says, ring ring ring, ohayo, wake up. BABYMETAL and Ribbon Metal met originally in 2016 at Music Station, but before that, at Summer Sonic 2015, they were both there and Ribbon Metal had seen BABYMETAL but from afar. She also mentions she spoke with Marilyn Manson and admired his style of doing whatever he wanted. Despite enjoying metal music, Ribbon Metal expresses that lately she's been listening to a lot of Muji music, specifically a group called Humbert Humbert. I went ahead and checked some of their songs out, and it is beautiful and super chill. For those who don't know, Ribbon Metal has hosted multiple radio shows and to this day runs at least one still at Tokyo FM, the same station as Metaraji. Sumetal then brings up how Ribbon Metal recently had a baby, and Ribbon Metal expresses that this big life change did affect her in what she looks for in music. Before, she would listen to fun songs, but now she looks for music that makes her baby stop crying. Apparently, Poison by Takashi Sorimachi is one such song. Again, I went and listened. And Ribbon Metal really knows what she's doing with her music taste in the realm of relaxation music. Kinda had a Depeche Mode vibe. Then, Momozilla asks Ribbon Metal, you've worked as a model and artist since your teens. Did you ever imagine yourself married with kids? Ribbon Metal says, well, when I was a student, I thought something like, I hope I'm married with kids by age 30, taking it easy. Ribbon Metal goes on to say that everyone has been so nice to her with the messages since she's had a child, and BABYMETAL congratulates her. Ribbon Metal will return in our next episode, and as we sign off episode 26, Sumetal asks their listeners who have babies to try BABYMETAL songs on them to see if they also can get a baby to stop crying. It is July 5th, 2025, just 2 days after Momozilla showed all of Michigan that she could dance the floss. For those who don't know, she did this on stage after being wished a happy birthday by Sumetal. The girls open a message from Ali Metal from Chile, who asks which songs have deeply touched the hearts of BABYMETAL. Sumetal says Akatsuki, Momozilla says Road of Resistance, and Momo says Arcadia. And I really can't argue with any of those picks. When Ribbon Metal returns, the girls dive into parenthood questions, asking Ribbon Metal about her life as a mom. Of course, she has experienced the usual things like being awake all the time, but she did say that she still goes out more than she thought she would and wants to bring her child on tour with her. Ribbon Metal then expressed frustration at not being able to find black baby clothes, and Moa and Sumetal let her know that BABYMETAL actually has a skeleton baby romper, like a little onesie. Momozilla then asked Ribbon Metal if she has ever thought about what kind of person she wants her son to be, and Ribbon Metal says, above all, she just wants him to be kind. What really won me over with her, though, is that she said she wasn't good at academics and was super into fashion, and therefore wants to respect whatever her son wants to do. Perhaps it's easier for a successful artist to support the follow your dreams mentality, but I still appreciate hearing that parents can still champion this idea. Later on, Ribbon Metal asks Baby Metal if they drink water on stage. They say they do, but only in small amounts as to not feel too full, and also water hardness varies from country to country, and it can make their sides hurt and make them not dance well if they are not careful. Always cool to hear about all the behind-the-scenes tips and tricks of the trade. What you see on stage is just the tip of the iceberg, and a result of a million contingencies and hours of preparation. The date is now July 12th, and episode 28 of Metaraji begins. In this episode, we get a lovely confirmation from both the girls and from Baby Metal Tube's editor's note. Cami Metal from France was assisted by the community in getting to the barrier at Frankfurt, and the girls directly remark on seeing her. Such a cool honor. So Ribbon Metal returns for one final episode and opens up on how she first performed abroad at an anime event. Unfortunately, she had a bit of a bad experience where the local sound engineer was careless and her song stopped playing in the middle of her set. They had to restart the whole thing. Poor Ribbon Metal left that day in tears, and it really is such a bummer that you can work so hard and prepare so well, but one person can still just mess it up for you. But Ribbon Metal does say that she was able to go back there for the show Another Sky, which is a documentary show where celebrities visit a place that marked their lives, and you can find and watch it on Facebook, thanks again to Baby Metal Tube's killer editing notes. Ribbon Metal then tells her story of going to Coachella in 2022, where apparently 3 of her 4 dancers were sick and could not perform. She ended up deciding to go it alone on stage, and while she did realize how much she depended on her dancers, she also realized that she could do it on her own. So I got the impression that she was saying it was kind of both a humbling and also prideful moment at the same time. By the way, if you're listening but not watching, please take a minute to look at the screen because I'm showing Ribbon Metal's outfit from Coachella, and you gotta see how awesome this is. It doesn't hurt that my favorite color combo is that pink and sky blue combination, like a fancy Spider-Woman. Ribbon Metal then has a question for Baby Metal where she asks them what they eat and whether they eat together, because Ribbon Metal says it's always just her and her manager, who's great, but she wishes she could share more meals with her dancers. Baby Metal responds saying the 3 of them always eat together. Sue Metal says while they are told they can do as they like on their days off, they always end up meeting back up at the hotel. In case anyone was still wondering, they are truly close friends, off stage. To close out, Ribbon Metal asks Baby Metal to share something personal, and Sue shares that she recently visited India with some friends. She says going there felt completely free, and she changed the way she thought about life in a lot of ways. Momo takes it in a different direction, stating that she spends a lot of time watching mukbangs on YouTube, enjoying specifically the sound of crunchy chicken. Yep, that's what Momo said. But then Moa Metal, whose answer also revolves around food, is a little more fancy. She actually spends time researching food trends and planning ahead of time what foods she is going to try. She loves food so much that she needs an attack plan. She also says that sometimes she'll see what's new in Japan while she is abroad and get sad at the thought that others are eating it without her. These girls really love their food. But you all knew that. So it's time to say goodbye to Ribbon Metal, and I must say she was a very interesting guest and one I had never heard of prior to doing this video, so it was a pleasant experience, and I hope you guys thought so too. It is now July 19th, 2025, and Baby Metal has just finished doing back-to-back shows in San Francisco, having added the second show due to demand. After reading another letter from a young girl fan, the girls muse about how their fans truly are good people. Moa Metal specifically remarks that the fans are so good that in fact they give up their front row seats they work so hard to get to little girls. This week, our new guests are 3 of the 5 members of the band Flow, who brought you much of the music you may have heard while watching Naruto. Vocalists Keigo, Koshi, and guitarist Take. Of course, Koshi and Take are brothers, so another sibling band like Maximum the Hormone. Another interesting thing to note, Baby Metal first met Flow at Baby Metal's very first show outside Japan, at the 2012 Anime Festival in Singapore, when Moa and Sue were teenagers and Momo was still quite a bit younger than that. Koshi asks Baby Metal in this episode how their relationship is while spending so much time together, and Moa Metal says, not to brag, but she thinks they all get along quite well. Momo says she can't imagine them arguing, and Moa says she doesn't really get irritated. Maybe sometimes. But then Sue chimes in and says that they can tell when another is irritated. They're sensitive to it and just give each other the space they need. When talking about experiences on the tour bus, the girls mention that they have assigned bunks with Sue being on the bottom so she can drag over the humidifier. But because of the humidifier, the floor gets soaked, and from the way Momo describes it, Moa has some kind of a moment about it. But they all have a good laugh, and Moa insists she never actually gets mad or fights. Just a fun fight, as Momo puts it. We all know Moa could never truly stay mad at Sue. Later in the episode, after they discuss some of the songs they made for Naruto, Koshi brings up tequila, saying that he enjoys handing out tequila to everyone at Flow the Festival, as a way to unite as one. And Sue Metal asks what they can do if they don't really like tequila so much. But Sue does say it in such a polite way, breaking the tension with laughter as she often does. Moa and Momo humor the tequila conversation, but it still seems the girls don't spend much time around tequila. No surprise there. Lastly, I just want to point out that Keigo says that people often come to their concerts dressed up as anime characters, to include Goku from Dragon Ball, which I simply had to mention. It is now July 26, and BABYMETAL recently performed that secret gig in Los Angeles. But if you want more details about that, go check out the back half of Chapter 14 of my definitive BABYMETAL guide video. Or you could just watch the whole thing. It's real good. So the episode begins with a fan letter introducing BABYMETAL to the idea of a BABYMETAL themed birthday party from a very enthusiastic fan named Mikey. When the guests from Flow return, they have more conversations about their anime tie-in songs. Back when Flow agreed to do the song Go for Naruto, it was not as common as it is today for bands to do anime tie-in songs. But they also said that they didn't hesitate to take the job, and today they have around 40 anime-related songs. The conversation then pivots to the idea that the world of BABYMETAL is described by some as a living anime. Both BABYMETAL and Flow have a good laugh about the idea, but Moa wonders if it's really okay. But speaking of anime, when asked if there is a manga or anime they're into, Keigo said Kaiju number 8, and Moa immediately geeks out. So Moa continues to be the anime MVP otaku. To close out this episode, we get a definitive statement about whether the girls drink alcohol, because Take straight up asks if they drink while they're on international tours. Moa says, on international tours, we barely drink, to stay in shape. It's a topic that doesn't come up a lot with them, and being in the metal sphere, there's a lot of heavy drinking to go around, so it's nice that the girls don't go too crazy with that. They are very disciplined. It is now August 2nd and the last episode of Metaraji before the release of Metal 4th. One more round with Koshi, Take, and Keigo of the band Flow. The band shares a funny story where they played a show in a hotel, and the way to describe it, it sounds like the stage was set up in a manner where you could see the exit visible from the stage. So they came in from the exit, played their show, said, "See you, thanks," turned around to go out the door, and the door wouldn't open. So they awkwardly had their backs to the audience while trying to exit naturally. After some time messing with the door, they hid behind a hotel screen. The whole mishap sounds very funny, and then they ask BABYMETAL if they have ever had a mishap like this. So this is the story of how the tour bus left the girls behind at the hotel. I'll speak this part as they said it. Sue Metal. So they told us, let's leave at 2. We went down to the lobby and we got there a bit late, like 2 or 3 minutes. Moa Metal. Yeah, but really it was only 1 minute. Sue Metal. When we went down to the lobby and went out, the bus was already gone. Moa Metal. Because we couldn't believe they'd leave us behind, we said, they're probably a little delayed, and waited a moment. Sue Metal. But we called the staff. Since it was 2 a.m., everyone was asleep. No one answers. No one responds. Was it the makeup artist who was awake? Moa Metal confirms. So when they got through to the makeup artist, the tour bus thought that they were on the bus and had no idea they left them. In the end, everything turned out okay, and they all point out that in the studio, Koba Metal is apparently there with them and laughing about it now too. But you know what? I bet you Koba was not laughing for 1 second when he was told the girls were left behind. I bet that was the longest tour bus ride back to a hotel he has ever felt. Before we say goodbye to Flo, they did point out that Sue Metal is wearing a Knotfest t-shirt in the studio. A fun reminder that everyone is casualed out for these radio shows. And while of course they were never going to do it, it would have been really fun if these broadcasts had video. A casual podcast with BABYMETAL. Maybe one day. The date is now August 9th, 2025. BABYMETAL just dropped their new album, Metal 4th, a music video for My Queen, and somewhere in Orlando, I myself was doing my best to not die of heat exhaustion in Disney World. But you know what else is crazy? The person who BABYMETAL has on as a guest this episode. But before that, again, yes, again, BABYMETAL is going to play From Me to You on their radio show. Again. I love the song, but damn, can't we get like algorithm or something? So BABYMETAL proudly introduces Sanae Takaichi, hereafter referred to as SanaMetal, and the actual future Prime Minister of Japan. Just months after this episode, she would become the actual leader of the entire country. That woman is being interviewed by BABYMETAL. And get this, she is a metal music drummer. SanaMetal shares that she began playing organ and then eventually piano. She expresses in junior high she got into Deep Purple, which seems to be a common thread amongst our older guests on Metaraji, and she formed her first band as a keyboardist in junior high. Her first exposure to drums was actually filling vacancies in her friend's school band for the percussion section. So she started playing in a band, like isolated instruments, like just the snare drum and just the bass drum. But she came upon a drum set there too, and just started playing. She would form a few bands over time, and she mentioned that she had a Walkman, which, for the younger listeners out there, is a portable cassette tape player. And SanaMetal would listen over and over again to songs and write out the music herself in order to play it, as she did not have the money or know how to buy sheet music. And apparently she brought some of the sheet music that she wrote into the studio for the girls to see. Super cool that she still had them. SanaMetal ends the episode with some very encouraging words to listeners, saying basically, you don't want regrets when life is done. If you're passionate about something, just do it. Even if it's hard, everything falls into place one way or another. The year continues on, and it is now August 16th, episode 33 of Metaraji, and we are officially halfway through every episode of this retrospective. So, if you're still with me, give yourself a huge pat on the back. If you're hearing this, it's because I decided to make this all one ginormous video. So let's get into episode 33, which aired the same day BABYMETAL played Summer Sonic. The girls get meta with this fact and ask people listening how the show is going. If you went to Summer Sonic 2025, leave a comment and let me know. Did you know BABYMETAL was talking to you on the radio show while you were watching them? So continuing with our esteemed metal drummer turned future Prime Minister, SanaMetal. Both BABYMETAL and SanaMetal speak on how they look up to X-Japan, still hailed today as the most popular Japanese rock band. And SuMetal mentions how X-Japan's X-Jump inspired their Kitsune Jump and Ijeme Dame Zettai. SuMetal says she was worried X-Japan would not accept them, but Yoshiki told them they really support them, and to keep creating a new kind of metal. SanaMetal then talks about how she has an electronic drum set where she lives in the lawmakers' dorms. She says politics rarely gets her upset, but when her husband ticks her off, she waits until he goes to bed and she takes it out on her drum set. The girls then ask SanaMetal what she would have done if she didn't go into politics, and she says either cheer dancing, character actress, or to own a restaurant. Now, this episode of Metaraji holds a special piece of BABYMETAL lore. It concerns that time BABYMETAL played with Rob Halford at the AP Music Awards. See, we all remember when SuMetal sang alongside Rob Halford. But a lot of us probably didn't know, myself included, is that originally BABYMETAL was only going to kind of cheer on while the Kami band played for Rob to sing. But when it came time to do it, Rob told them, "What do you mean you're not singing with me? Sing with me." And he kept encouraging Sue and the girls to join in fully and sing along. Rob Halford is a national treasure. And with that, BABYMETAL says goodbye to the future Prime Minister and tells us that the following week, Metaraji will be a little different. It's August 23rd, but in actuality this episode was recorded the week prior at Summer Sonic and will feature various guests. First up, BABYMETAL interviews Yungblud. SuMetal asks Yungblud if he has any lasting impressions from Summer Sonic back in 2022, to which Yungblud replies,
Last year I nearly got into trouble because I remember not a lot of people were allowed to mosh. I remember they told us no moshing, and I remember we were side stage and the radio presenter went on stage and he was speaking in Japanese and he said, "I am very worried about this next performer. Remember, whatever he says, do not mosh or do not scream." And I don't understand Japanese, so I thought the presenter was giving us a good talk up. So I said, "Oh, we better have a good show." But we went on and I just went, "Let's go, motherfuckers!" And the whole place went crazy and I got in trouble, but it was good.
Then SuMetal follows up with asking how Yungblud will approach this year, and he says his approach is the same, and goes on to praise the tour in 2024 they did together with BABYMETAL and Bring Me the Horizon. Then Momozilla mentions he did the opening theme for the anime Kaiju No. 8, And Yungblud says this.
Yeah, that was so sick. I mean, I remember like seeing it because I knew the book really well. And I was just like, when I got asked to do the music, I was like, hell yeah. But I remember I only had one day before I left to go to Thailand. So I stayed up all night in the studio and made that song and got on a plane. Wow. It was cool, man. They're like, oh, do you want to do it? I was like, yeah. But they're like, it's got to be by tomorrow. I was like, I leave tomorrow. So Red Bull.
We then say goodbye to Yungblud and hello to Japanese singer-songwriter Hyde. BABYMETAL asks Hyde if he has any memorable moments of Summer Sonic, and he shares that during COVID, it was very restrictive, making it very difficult to rock out. I went ahead and looked online and saw that he must be talking about the same show Yungblud got in trouble for when he told everyone to mosh, because 2022 was the first Summer Sonic back after COVID, and I doubt 2023 saw much restriction. Hyde then talks about how you see a lot more foreigners at Summer Sonic than you do at other Japanese festivals, and goes on to tell the girls he is going to cover Linkin Park at the festival that day. Rolling Stone then chimes in and asks Hyde about his thoughts on his own vocal development throughout his time as an artist, and Hyde responds saying that in the beginning, he tried to sound like vocalists overseas, but over time he valued his Japanese identity, and tries to stay true to his own style. Su-Metal then chimes in agreeing that early on she didn't think she was good at techniques like vibrato or falsetto, but she looked at them as complex and desirable, but once she was praised for her uniqueness as a singer, she realized, this is my individuality, and she now focuses on staying true to her own sound. But we say goodbye to Hyde, who will return as a Metaraji guest later, and say hello to Jim Shaw and Hannah Mee, twin lead vocalists and guitarists from the Manchester rock band Hot Milk.
Okay, my name is Hannah from Hot Milk, and I'm sat next to
Jim from Hot Milk.
Su-Metal then asks Jim and Hannah what they thought of Summer Sonic this year.
Oh, amazing. The Japanese fans are insane. They're so cool.
Incredible.
And they're just so happy, and that makes me happy. It's like a symbiotic relationship, and I feed off their energy. It's beautiful.
We've wanted to play Summer Sonic for a long time now, so to come here and see so many people who've come and watched it was incredible. It was really, really fun.
Loved it.
Momozilla then asked Jim and Hannah what they like about visiting Japan.
We like to go shopping and drink lots of beer.
We went to Golden Guy yesterday. We had sushi, ramen. Japanese food is the best. It's the best.
I think so.
We just like to follow our feet and see where we end up. And it's a beautiful place to see. I love all the lights. I'm like,
Thanks.
Then Momo asked Jim and Hannah about their experience being a female and male co-lead vocalist together.
You're terrible. No, I'm joking. I'm excited.
Hannah's got a great voice. She always has.
Yeah.
So, like, when we first met each other, we didn't realize that we could both sing.
Yeah,
so
we were together for 4 years, boyfriend and girlfriend, but that was 6 years ago. But we went through like a lot of things in our lives together, and now he's like my best friend.
Yeah.
Wow.
He's like my brother.
Yeah,
you know,
it's like family.
Yeah. We finish each other's
Sandwiches.
So cute.
Momozilla then brings up how Jim and Hannah, who used to be boyfriend and girlfriend but are now just friends in the band, originally met on Tinder, which is true and possibly the only band origin story quite like that. Can't be too many bands that formed thanks to Tinder. And that brings us to the end of the very cool and different approach to Metaraji. I really wish they did more episodes like this on the road, but I'm sure it's a ton of setup and a lot harder to pull off, so at least we have this one to smile at. Let's move on to the next episode. It is now August 30th, 2025, and the girls open up a message from Isaac, who traveled 9 hours from Costa Rica to Los Angeles to go to the notorious secret gig at the Regent Theater. A drive he says he'll do again for Intuit Dome. Isaac, if you're listening to this, give yourself a high five because that is some killer dedication. Now, on to our guest. Many of you may know him for his collaborations with BABYMETAL. His name is DAIDAI, from the band Pale Dusk. In regard to BABYMETAL, he first helped bring us The End by Lil Uzi Vert, featuring BABYMETAL. But if that's not your jam, no worries, because he also brought us Kawaii. So I'd say DAIDAI is more than redeemed there. DAIDAI discusses how he first heard BABYMETAL back in his teens and how it was refreshing to hear something so different in metal music since he thought a lot of it sounded the same. He also talked about how he got into some heavier music through a middle school teacher he had who would play acoustic guitar in class, and then lent him some CDs to listen to like Ozzy Osbourne, but he does say he was already into Linkin Park and would also shortly thereafter get into Bring Me the Horizon. Yep, another artist influenced by Bring Me. Momozilla later asks if DAIDAI is fluent in English because she saw him speaking with Ali Sykes, but DAIDAI insists he is not and that the conversation was like 80% vibes. Which is such a relatable thing to say for any of us married into a family that speaks another language than your own. Comment below and let me know if you guys married someone whose family speaks a different language than you and how fluent you think you are now. Anyways, DAIDAI went on to say that his lack of fluency is actually what he credits for how good the album he did with Bring Me the Horizon turned out. DAIDAI says he went to Ali's house and Ali had so many things about what he wanted to do for the album, and DAIDAI says between his fluency and Ali's Sheffield accent, he caught about 20%, and filled in the rest of the inspiration with his own interpretation. When he was done, Ali called him a genius, so I guess everything worked out. Fun fact about DAIDAI before moving on to the next episode, his parents are Chinese, but he grew up in Japan. Alright guys, it's September 6, 2025. BABYMETAL recently performed with Saikima 2, finishing the Japan leg of their Asia tour. And now they have a bit of a break until they absolutely rock Busan. Spoilers. So DAIDAI returns to Metaraji, and talks about how much he looked up to One OK Rock as a kid. And eventually he was invited by Takahiro, their lead singer and the past guest on Metaraji, to come make music with him at his house. When DAIDAI was hanging out with Taka, at some point while discussing making music, Taka pops open a very expensive bottle of wine, and DAIDAI tells him that he won't drink when he's composing. He's very strict about that. DAIDAI speaks a lot throughout these 2 episodes about how creating music that is unique is more important to him than anything else. So I'm not surprised that he wants to keep his mind sharp. DAIDAI also shares that while he spent time with Taka at first, being that he looked up to him, there was a bit of a wall between them, but Taka was committed to breaking that wall down, and he did so by having DAIDAI jump into his pool over and over again until DAIDAI was like, "What's this?" And Taka said, "See, now you're speaking normally." Taka sounds like a very down-to-earth person for such a famous musician. After that, conversation switches to the production of Kawaii, and Su-Metal expresses that when they first got the track back from DAIDAI without vocals, they thought, "How am I supposed to sing this?" But pulling off things like that, she says, are what is so important, if not more and more difficult to do. She says they always try to aim for a sound that makes people go, "What on earth is this?" But after a long enough time, people get used to it. So you have to try something new. And Kawaii is the perfect something new that a lot of people were looking for, I think. DAIDAI then tells a story about his undying work ethic. When on tour in the US, DAIDAI was waiting for the tour bus to show up, but sounds like the bus was in an accident and instead, a van shows up. A van that they're going to spend the next month in, and it had no outlets. DAIDAI had been tasked to get 2 songs done for One OK Rock and 2 songs done for Bring Me the Horizon, and he had to work on them while he was on tour. Rather than asking for an extension, he forced himself to get the work done by making frequent visits to convenience stores asking to use their outlet for 30 minutes. And this is literally what gave us songs like Puppets Can't Control You by One OK Rock and Kool-Aid by Bring Me the Horizon. Those songs were composed by DAIDAI crouching by an ATM in a convenience store. Wild. And I don't think I can end this episode with anything better than that, so let's say goodbye to DAIDAI, and wait to hear a familiar voice for our next episode. It's September 13th. BABYMETAL is still in a brief break period in the middle of their Asia tour, and this week they get a message from a Mexican fan named VeilMetal, who asks the girls which of them eats the most and which one sleeps the most. While the girls don't really make a claim about who eats the most, their answer for who sleeps the most comes easily. Momozilla says, definitely Su-Metal. She goes on to say that her and Momo get up 2 hours earlier than her and stretch and get ready, while Su sleeps until the very last second. Even sleeping right up until it's time to perform. So basically, Su just sleeps, eats, and performs. It is good to know that Su-Metal is able to get the rest she needs, but it's really funny thinking about Moa and Momo being up and about, getting ready, and Su just still in her bunk, sleeping the morning away. So our returning guest arrives in the form of Hyde, who BABYMETAL briefly interviewed with Rolling Stone during the Summer Sonic Festival just a few weeks ago. Right off the bat, Hyde gives us a strange answer when asked if he often listens to metal and says he doesn't really listen to music, but prefers to sit in silence. Hyde is in his 50s now, so when he was growing up and getting into music, his way of finding out about music came mostly from magazines. And he brings up Burn magazine, talking about how they would rank new metal albums, giving them a certain amount of points. And suddenly the girls laugh because they remember when Demon KAKKA was on the program and it was brought up how Seikima 2 was given 0 points by the same magazine. Hyde then gives us another window into a different generation where he points out that when he was in his 20s, you couldn't just watch music videos. So they would go to these cafes that would play whatever music video you wanted if you bought a coffee. So they'd say, I want to see that Motley Crue video. And then it'd be like, oh, that's what they look like. Can you imagine now having no idea what your favorite artist looks like? I mean, besides the ones that choose to do that, like Otto or Daft Punk. So Hyde then tells us a funny story. He was waiting for a friend near a crosswalk, just spacing out, when a car pulls up, playing Hellion by Judas Priest. But the car stops at the red light and the guy driving paused the song. Hyde wonders to himself, why'd he stop the song? Then, when the light turned green, he unpaused and drove away with the music back on. The driver just wanted to sync his car's takeoff with the music of the song. Such a funny scene to imagine. I feel like we've all had funny people-watching moments before. But with that, I think we should move on to Hyde's next episode with BABYMETAL. It is now September 20th, 2025, and many fans were anxiously waiting for the results of the ticket lottery for the upcoming Legend Metal 4th show that would take place in January the following year. This episode begins with Metal making a fanfic about the person who wrote into Metaraji that day. Apparently the person who wrote in was shown BABYMETAL by their crush, and Metal says this. Imagine them listening to Metaraji with a single pair of earphones shared between them, and then suddenly he says, Metal, is that you? And she replies,
Yes, actually I've always liked you like that.
Mo really is a character, just walking around with an inner monologue about other people's romance. She is so obviously an anime fan. But anyways, we welcome back Hyde Metal, or Hyde if you find the metal suffix confusing, and Hyde clarifies that his band's name is French. So if you've been wondering why I haven't said his band name out loud, it's because I don't know how to pronounce it. But apparently it's a French word for rainbow. Hyde brings this up because their very first show in France, they saw a double rainbow, which was shockingly cool. After this, Hyde talks about his time with the band Vamps and says this is how he broke into international success because it was with Vamps that he connected with Motley Crue and started getting into many festivals and overseas shows. The conversation then shifts towards touring when Metal asks Hyde if there is something about touring he still can't get used to. They talk about the limited amount of hot water on tour buses and other facilities being shared with the other bands and how strict it can be when you're not the main act. After Hyde mentions doing some physical training on his off days, Metal manages to once again shift the conversation back to food, and asks Hyde if he watches what he eats. He expresses a love for natto, a Japanese dish made from fermented soybeans and is high in protein. And even though it's probably tough to find overseas, his staff manages to keep him stocked up on it while on tour. Hyde then asks what the girls do for food, which of course they bring up how they have tons of snacks. But also Metal points out that Metal always has yuzu kosho, a Japanese condiment that is chili paste, salt, and yuzu peel, which gives food a spicy and aromatic touch. Thank you again to BABYMETAL 2 for the additional layer of context there. Hyde then mentions that while he will treat himself to some ramen when visiting Fukuoka, he typically never craves ramen, to which Metal says she'll have to reflect on that. So then, to close out, the girls bring up how Momo does the death voice for BABYMETAL now, and Momo shares that sometimes while she's just talking, Moa and Sue will exclaim, It's coming out! It's coming out! Which I do remember happening in an early episode. But let's move on to the next episode now. It is now September 27th, 2025, and BABYMETAL is gearing up to go to South Korea. We get a fan letter into Metaraji from BABYMETAL, and BABYMETAL gives us a Japanese phrase to use in everyday conversation, and one that is from their song, Megitsune. The phrase is this, Nametara ikanseo.
Nametara ikanseo.
This phrase means don't underestimate me, and Metal says it during the final chorus of the song right after the bridge as she pulls out a very shiny knife. But back to the episode. Hyde is back as the guest for one more go-round, and they begin talking about collaborations. I want to highlight what Metal says about collaborations because it echoes a lot of fan opinions. Metal says, for Metal 4th, they found it difficult to work with other artists because you have to balance between showing your own style, creating something new, and at the same time highlighting the other artists. If you adjust too much to the other, you risk disappearing. The balance is tricky. While I personally loved most of the collabs to death, it's still nice to hear that so much thought is going into them to ensure BABYMETAL's style doesn't disappear within another. Then the conversation shifts to beauty. BABYMETAL wants to know, what is Hyde's secret to timeless beauty? Hyde says it's simple: do nothing. Apparently, all Hyde does for his skin is use Vaseline. He'll put some on before putting on makeup and then remove the makeup with Vaseline too. He said it is because Vaseline hardly oxidizes. I'm not much of a skin expert, so I'll take his word on it, but he does go on to say that he doesn't use soap or shampoo, and I don't think I'm ready for a commitment like that. But I guess you can't argue with his results. But it is now time to say goodbye to Hyde. But who will the next guest be? Well, it's actually someone I myself only recently discovered, making me mad that I fell behind on Metaraji a year ago. It is now October 4th. BABYMETAL is playing shows again, and their guest for the next 3 weeks is Ma from the Japanese band Sim. If you are unfamiliar, you may know of that video of BABYMETAL listening to music with headphones. That is them checking out the new song by Sim called 5 Times Dead. Their music is really good. I must recommend them. But Ma comes in and immediately hears them talking about how handsome Hyde was and jokes that he's sorry he's not in the same league. So Momozilla asks Ma, what got him into metal? And Ma points out that when he was in middle school and high school, nu metal was the big thing. Limp Bizkit made the song for Mission Impossible, and POD did the song for The Matrix. And all of a sudden I realized, I must be close to the same age as this guy. And yup, Ma is 39, just a few years older than me. I knew I liked this guy. Momozilla then asks, the members of Sim kind of have a demonic theme. Is it okay to call it that? Like demons of rock? Where does that influence come from? Then Ma says that, at least for the black around the eyes, it started at a Halloween event where a friend from another band had black around his eyes, and he was like, hey, lend me that. And he put it on too. And as Momozilla puts it, his dark side awakened. Momozilla asks Ma, since he originally played guitar and sang, why did he end up being just a singer in the band now instead of also playing guitar? Ma says he simply wanted to be more free with his singing and rapping, and it's hard not to focus on the guitar when you're doing both. Also, he says, with guitar you have to practice so much, and he doesn't like that. To which Momozilla insists singing also requires a lot of practice, which I think was her coming to Su-Metal's defense a little. Of course they're laughing in the exchange. I don't think Ma thinks singing requires no practice. Then the girls ask if Ma has a routine that he does before every show. And he does. It's pretty specific, actually. Ma wakes up 4 hours before the show, soaks in a really hot bath for 30 minutes, gets ready, and heads to the venue. About an hour before the showtime, he does his makeup. And 30 minutes before, he warms up his voice with a few set songs. He specifically never rehearses. Momozilla notices something strange and says, but shows are usually at night, right? You still wake up 4 hours before the show? And then Ma shares with them that he doesn't adjust to the different time zones, he just sleeps a lot when on tour. He plays video games after shows since his day is not really over yet when the concert is over. But with that, we move on to the next episode. It is now October 11th, and BABYMETAL is now officially done with their tours for the year of 2025. And they just have 2 arena shows remaining, one in LA and one in Mexico. Ma returns as a guest, and BABYMETAL talk with him about the festival he founded called Dead Pop Festival. It's been around since 2010, moved outdoors in 2015, and Ma remarks how outdoor summer shows have gotten incredibly hot. This is why he moved the dates to April in 2026. This is also the moment when BABYMETAL is invited directly by Ma during the show to come play at Dead Pop Festival, so if you were there in 2026 and saw BABYMETAL, you have Metaraji to thank for that. Momozilla then asks, is there any year of the festival that he'll never forget? Ma then goes on to describe that because the festival is outdoors, they're always battling the weather. Specifically, he remembers one time when it was pouring rain, and Maximum the Hormone was playing and there was a giant rainbow right behind them. And his thought was, a rainbow really doesn't suit them at all. Then Moa asks, do you get rained on pretty often then? And Ma goes, curiously, when we go on, it stops raining. Even the weather is on your side, says Momozilla, thinking about all the times the weather was not, in fact, on her side. The girls go on to tell the story about how Sue is the rain bringer who brings rain everywhere she goes. Moa, I'm sure it's Sue's fault. Sue, in the US, the rain radar followed us the whole tour, crossing the country with us. The radar and the tour bus traveled together the whole time. Momozilla, even in Japan, right when Sue leaves the house, it starts raining. It's a real talent at this point. Su-Metal, that's why Momozilla always says to me, you left the house at such and such a clock, didn't you? Because that's exactly when it started raining. Some of these exchanges have been so fun, so please go check them out at some point with the girls' actual voices so you can hear how funny they are. Episode 42 aired on October 18th, 2025, and Ma of the band Sim returns for his final episode. This is the episode that taught me that Sim actually did the anime intro song for the final season of Attack on Titan, called The Rumbling, which was a song that blew up in popularity. Its music video has 80 million more views than the next most popular Sim music video on their channel. I never knew this myself because I'm still on season 2 of Attack on Titan, so no spoilers please. But the success of The Rumbling is what made Sim more popular in the US, where before that they went to a festival in the States and not many showed up. Then, Su-Metal asks Ma what problems or surprises totally shocked him touring abroad, to which he brings up his first US tour. Due to a money issue, the bus never came for them and they had to fly between cities for the first half of the tour, and then when they finally did get a bus for the second half, water poured from the ceiling and the AC didn't work. Momozilla remarks, "After that, any tour bus feels luxurious." And then all three girls and Ma just start gushing about how much they love tour buses. So I had to look up a video tour of one, and yeah, they seem really nice. I'd totally live in one too. Then the conversation shifts to Ma doing his first show in Mexico, and the girls all insist that he bring oxygen tanks. This is something I had never heard of before, listening to the girls talk about it on Metaraji. So if you're not from Mexico but have visited Mexico, please let me know if the thinner air is something you noticed. I find this topic fascinating. But we do get confirmation in this episode that Momozilla indeed loves tacos. I made a video not long ago comparing Moa's love for tacos to Gur from Invader Zim's love for tacos. But to be honest, back then, I didn't even know if Moa even liked tacos. So it's nice to know as being properly representative of her taste. But now, it's time to say goodbye to Ma, and move on to our next episode. It is now October 25th, 2025. The final Metaraji before Halloween and the final one before the Intuit Dome Arena show in Los Angeles. The message they get on the show is one of many that talk about fan birthdays, and the girls encourage all the listeners of Metaraji to raise your signs up at the concerts to say it's your birthday and they'll blow you a kiss. Momozilla insists, however, not to cheat. It has to be your actual birthday. I'm sure no one will abuse this information. But moving on, our guest today, and for the next 3 episodes, is the guitarist and vocalist of the band Man with a Mission, named Janken Johnny. But to keep it simple for this video, I'm just going to call him Johnny. I hope that's okay. Now somehow, the first question they ask has nothing to do with why Johnny wears a giant wolf mask all the time. I really thought that would be the first question, but instead the first question is whether or not he has ever had student days. I think Moa's question is intentionally playing into Johnny's wolfman persona. Johnny explains that he needs to translate the question to human age. So yeah, Johnny's character will be joining the conversation today. Not unlike Demon KAKKA before him. But Johnny says he grew up being influenced by Megadeth, Metallica, Pantera, and Slayer. The first song they play on the episode, at Johnny's request, is Iron Maiden's Number of the Beast, which he chooses because he is a beast. His words. He's a wolf, remember? But I did find it fun that after they listen to the song, Momozilla proves that she is aware that 666 is the number of the beast. But to be fair, she did just listen to the song that said that phrase over and over again, so I guess I can't prove she knew that before she heard the song. Johnny talks also about how he is the only one in the band who speaks, and when they are playing live, sometimes if someone needs to leave the stage due to an emergency, like having trouble breathing, they just disappear. Johnny says this is probably the best way to manage it though, just to leave without saying anything, and maybe the audience will find it amusing that someone just dashes off the stage. Johnny then pulls a question from the box of questions that asks who he would like to share the stage with someday if he can only pick one, which he says Rage Against the Machine. It's November 1st, and BABYMETAL is getting ready for their Intuit Dome appearance as this episode airs. Well, according to BABYMETAL Tube, the episode aired at 3:30 in the morning in Los Angeles, so the girls were probably still sleeping. But anyways, we welcome back Johnny the Wolfman, and both he and BABYMETAL reminisce on each of their 15-year band histories, both of them starting in 2010. Johnny brings up how only recently he noticed that maybe his band was not cut out for summer festivals, to which Moa and Momo both says, You just realized that? You only noticed now? For, of course, Johnny and his band all wear gigantic furry wolf masks, which would definitely be dangerous in summer heat. Momo asked the kind of question they have been asking most of the guests and asked Johnny what moment sticks out to him that makes him glad he's in a band. Johnny tells the story of his first festival. Not a lot of people knew him back then, but recently, Man with a Mission had gone viral on Twitter. Back then, Twitter was first starting to catch on in Japan, and everyone was saying there's this weird wolf band, but apparently their shows are really hype. Johnny says they only expected to get like 500 or 600 people for it, and they'd consider that a win. But they blew past the capacity of 2,000. Everyone simply couldn't fit. Now here's a good bit of Baby Metal info that I think a lot of fans aren't aware of was said on Metaraji, because it directly reflects a common gripe in the fandom. See, Johnny was talking about his own band, but he says, in regard to live sets, if you always play the same staples, people might think, they do the same thing at every festival. Moa then says, oh, that hit me right in the heart. She's joking a little bit, but she does go on to say that Baby Metal does the same set list a lot on purpose. It's a formula where they have picked the songs that best convey Baby Metal's essence, that they prefer this structure. Moa continues saying that she thinks it's impressive that they can make the exact same set feel fresh every time. However, she does say that they discuss tweaking for each festival or event. So, when fans discuss why they never play some of their older or even newer obscure songs, well, I think Moa Metal just gave us her answer. But we can dream. And Moa does close out that part of the conversation by saying that it is something they worry about. When they close out the episode after Johnny signs off, Moa seemingly randomly asks Momo and Sue if they ever go onto stage thinking how cute they are. All three of them say no, and Sue specifically says she can't do cute mode on stage. She just has to feel powerful. And both Moa and Momo agree that she is the queen. Not sure how it came up, but thought it was funny and notable. It is now November 8th, and Baby Metal is finally done playing concerts for the year 2025. They just wrapped up their arena show in Mexico, and now it's just break time for the holidays. Johnny the Wolfman returns, and to get right into it, Johnny speaks about the difference in fan reception from Japanese fans to overseas fans. Similar to what many guests have said, Japanese fans tend to be more reserved and take longer to warm up to a band. But overseas, from the very first riff, audiences are like, yes, I love this band! Sue Metal then shares the well-known by fans story of Sonosphere 2014. Sue says when they first started performing, they were greeted with death stares across the entire audience. But as we know, after about 30 minutes, the crowd warmed up and realized that they actually really liked Baby Metal, and the show became a testament to how Baby Metal wins over fans of all kinds through sheer talent and willpower. But in case it's still in dispute in the fandom, yes, audiences have thrown plastic bottles at them on stage according to Moa Metal. Imagine throwing a bottle at Moa Metal. Like, seriously. Put yourself in the shoes of a grown-ass man or woman who chooses to do this. Anyway, when it comes time for Johnny to start drawing questions out of the box again, the conversation comes up of what he does while traveling on tour, to which he says he plays cards with his band a lot. Moa and Momo both confirm that they too play cards on their downtime while on tour. They describe this card game Sue started bringing where they don't speak and have to use hand gestures. But also, they play a mean game of Uno. Okay, but now Johnny picks the best question in the box. Finally, kind of sort of answering the question I thought they would ask in the first place. The question reads like this. What are the moments you think, I'm glad to be a wolf? And on the other hand, it's tough being a wolf. Sorry, I'm just thinking of one of the girls giggling while they write this question down. So Johnny says, the good part is that everyone wants to take a picture with them because it's like they're a mascot. Of course, the bad part is the obvious overheating issue. But then this exchange happens. Momo. But what about fur maintenance? Johnny. Fur maintenance? Momo. Like keeping it fluffy. Johnny. Fluffy? Momo. How do you keep it so fluffy? So Johnny simply tells her that he brushes it, of course, and now Momo has outed herself as definitely the person who wrote that question. Later, Johnny asks Baby Metal if there's a place outside Japan that they think they could call home. They say they always end up wanting to return to Japan, but Moa Metal does land on saying that having a vacation home in the UK would be nice, though she says Sue would probably use it most. Apparently, Sue says she does little study abroad stays when she has time. She doesn't say where, but it made me wonder. Is Sue Metal just randomly among us sometimes, disguised? Is it possible? But it's time to say goodbye to the greatest wolf since Togo, and welcome back some human guests. Well, I guess this next guest isn't quite human either. It is now November 15th, 2025, and a familiar guest returns to the show. Demon KAKKA of Seikimatu. Naturally, the girls fear that he will take over the show again, but now that their concert together is over, I get the feeling this encounter will be much friendlier and less menacing. We'll see. So when discussing how the 2-day concert event was planned, Moa asks if it was Demon KAKKA's decision to use Ijime Dame Zetai as a song that he himself would deliver some lines for. Demon KAKKA says that they were trying to think of a song that would work well with the concept of him coming in to disrupt the song, and Ichime Dame Zetai seemed like a good choice. Though the girls and he himself were not sure his lines came across to the audience, as even in the in-ear monitors the girls say they couldn't quite make out what he was saying. Later, Metal shares that BABYMETAL added a song to their setlist specifically because they thought Seikima 2 fans would appreciate it, and that song was Karate. The episode continues with Demon KAKKA and BABYMETAL seemingly still enemies, but we do get a character break moment at the end where the girls assure us it's just an act, just in case the acting was too good. This is all for show, of course. November 22nd, 2025, episode 47 of Metaraji airs, and Demon KAKKA returns once again. But this time, the girls get him to speak a little bit about himself. Metal says that Demon KAKKA was born on November 10th, but she asks him to confirm how many years ago on November 10th he was born. Or as he says, manifested. Demon KAKKA replies that it was 100,063 years ago. Metal says that he first encountered metal in the first year of university, but in high school, he did already want to be a singer. Metal also says that even back when he was young, there was this annoying distinction between what was hard rock and what was metal. But the song Watashi wa Kaze by Carmen, Maki, and Oz was the song that made him realize he could sing high notes, and also the song that got him into metal. Metal goes on to talk about his regular appearances on a Japanese program called Yuyake Nyan Nyan, featuring idol group Onyanko Club, who was popular in the 80s, and pioneered idol culture. What did Metal do on these guest appearances? He bullied them, coming in to interrupt their set and yelling at them in a gruff voice, to the horror of the BABYMETAL girls. But we'll close out this episode with a very fun fact that Metal shares. The idea for Seikima 2 to do a show with BABYMETAL originally came about in 2015, but it didn't happen. Then again in 2020, but again, it did not happen. So the fact that it finally happened in 2025 after so long is even cooler, knowing that they had tried to get this idea off the ground for so long, though he did not share details about why the first few attempts didn't work out. Let's move on to Demon KAKKA's final appearance on Metaraji. It is now November 29th, and the end of the year is quickly approaching, and in total we are about 3/4 of the way through all of the Metaraji episodes. Give yourself a huge pat on the back if you got this far in the video, and 2 pats if it was in one sitting. Okay, that's about enough patting. Thank you. Moving on. This episode number 48 of Metaraji, I do want to share the story of the message that BABYMETAL read because I find it so nice and heartwarming. The letter is from Yoshishi Metal, and she says that she lives in Japan and has hardly had time to attend BABYMETAL solo concerts. She's a wife and a mother of 2. Every time she would see the announcements of BABYMETAL overseas tours, she'd spend the day sighing. At that moment, her husband told her, "Taipei is close, right? I'll take care of the kids. You go by yourself." And he booked the plane and hotel for his wife to go see BABYMETAL. If you're a parent of young kids and a fan, you probably know this feeling all too well. To want to go see BABYMETAL live, but it's hard with life and young kids. I too am a lucky husband whose wife watches the little ones so I can go see BABYMETAL. My wife is awesome like that. So in this episode, BABYMETAL returns one last time and finally agrees to be BABYMETAL's Metatomo, or metal friend. They then talk about how Seikima 2 originally planned on disbanding in 1999, and they did. But they did do periodic reunions, with the first being in 2005. When they disbanded, they were at the height of their fame, going out with a bang, so coming back had to also be with a bang. Metal shares that when he first came out with the first song during that first reunion performance, all he could think about was, I absolutely cannot mess this up under any circumstances. I guess it's kind of like when a pro athlete retires and then comes back and just isn't as good. Like, you don't want that to be you. The guy who sullied his legacy trying to relive the glory days. But luckily, it doesn't sound at all like that happened to Metal here, which is good. Metal then says that when they are in other countries, after they leave, for her and Momo, the random memories will just poof out of their head. They just don't remember. But she remarks that, like Metal, Metal remembers things quite well, even from like 10 years ago. I found this comment a little surprising, because as much of the speaking that is dominated by Metal, I would have thought her memory was excellent. She is constantly the one in the interviews pointing things out. I don't know. Maybe she has a cheat sheet. More than likely, she's probably just being overcritical. Well, it's been fun, but I think it's finally time to say goodbye to Demon KAKKA. The girls lament that he never confirmed whether he was their Metatomo or not, but I thought he said I shall be in response to that before, so either they forgot or I misunderstood. Or they're just trying to keep the joke going. It is now December 6th, 2025, and Baby Metal's nice long holiday break continues. Just a few weeks until Sue's birthday. And mine, by the way. That's right, my birthday and Sue Metal's are very close. Only 3 days off. No big deal. Anyways, the message that the girls get on this episode of Metaraji is from a guy from Australia who is excited for Baby Metal to come to Perth in 2026, and also encourages them to make sure they see the cutest animal in the world while they are there called the quokka. The girls get excited, and I can see why. The quokka really is adorable. Our guest for this Metaraji episode is an actor this time named Furuta Arata, and because it is difficult for me to say, I will immediately transition into using his middle name, Arata Metal. Apparently, Arata Metal showed up to the studio with a hat that has a fried egg on top, and Mo Metal really liked it, calling it cute, and that it made her hungry. Baby Metal had recently, in October 2025, been on the 8 Jam program, which is hosted in part by Arata Metal along with the other cast members. So this is where Baby Metal met him, and also DAIDAI was there as well. It's very difficult to find footage online of this TV episode, but it did happen. So, of course, we start with the question from Momo Metal. She asks, what was your first encounter with metal? What pulled you in? Arata Metal says that around 4th or 5th grade, it was all about the big three of hard rock: Kiss, Queen, and Aerosmith. Arata Metal seems to have gravitated mostly to Kiss, as he went to see them at the Budokan with his Oni-chan, which sort of translates to Big Sister, who he also happened to be in love with at the time, and who worked at a nearby tobacco shop. Later on, when he got older, Arata Metal worked at a radio station on the program All Night Japan, and he says they had a list of 3 forbidden things. No dirty jokes, no hard rock, no heavy metal. So naturally, Arata Metal decided those were all the things he was going to do for his radio segment, and he reached a lot of people and made them fans of Western music. I'll close out this episode with this interesting tidbit. Arata Metal says that for his stage show that he does called Gekidan Shinkansen, the song that plays while the audience is leaving is a Baby Metal song. When telling this story, he hesitates, thinking Koba Metal is going to scold him, but Moa Metal, being the devil on his shoulder, assures him, it's okay, he can't see you from here, it's fine. But the song he says is The End. But the problem is, Baby Metal has 2 features on songs called The End, so if you know which one he's referring to, comment below. But before the episode is done, this is when Baby Metal first announces on the show that Metaraji Fest is officially confirmed. We're getting there, folks. It is December 13th, 2025, and the 50th episode of Metaraji and the last episode of Metaraji with a 27-year-old Sue Metal. The girls begin the episode hyping the upcoming Metaraji Fest concert they announced last episode, set to take place on March 29th, 2026. And welcome back continuing guest, Arata Metal. Sue Metal asks Arata Metal a question about what he was like when he was a teenager, before he was a big stage actor and TV and radio personality. Arata Metal says he wanted to be a pro wrestler, a mangaka, and a musician. He also says he read manga because he was kinda dumb, and then Moa says, no, that's not true. I feel like guests keep accidentally trolling Moa Metal. Poor Moa Metal, she really has the most relatable interests too. But then, Arata Metal talks about how he went to see a musical in 5th grade. He was not interested, but I'll narrate exactly what he says because it's funnier that way. Arata Metal. It was a classic called Futari no Lotte, but I wasn't interested at all. So I was snoring my head off. Then all of a sudden some loud music kicked in and I was like, what a racket. And when I looked, it was the first morning scene. The greengrocer starts singing, the fishmonger is singing, the pastors start singing. Everybody's singing in the morning, and I thought, this is nonsense, there's no market like that. But everything was so beautiful, and I had thought, oh, being on stage means I can do anything. I can specialize in music. I can even be a pro wrestler too, and I thought, man, this job is such a good deal. I want to do this. So Arata Metal at that point decided he wanted to be an actor. Arata Metal would then write scripts and make classmates perform his plays throughout his school life, and eventually, at 18, he joined the stage act we mentioned last episode wherein Baby Metal plays as the guest sleeve, so I guess that has been a stage act for a while. We'll close out this episode with an acknowledgement from Moa, who does say in this episode that it is indeed hard to say Arata's full name, Furuta Arata, without stumbling. So it's nice to hear a native Japanese-speaking person say that. It's not just me. It is now episode 51 of Metaraji, and the date is December 20th, 2025. Happy birthday to the undisputed queen of metal music, Nakamoto Suzuka. They open the show with Momozilla seeming to confirm that this is the first time they are actually recording on the day they are airing. So the birthday wishes from Moa and Momo are not just for show, they're real. Sumetal says this in response to the birthday wishes and the messages they have seen so far on Metaraji. Sumetal. Really, thank you so much to all the listeners. It makes me really happy. First of all, being celebrated like this on the radio, it feels like we meet once a week, right? Even if we don't actually meet, we can still feel connected. I hope that by listening to Metaraji, you get to know us more and more. And that thanks to Metaraji, the world feels a little bigger. Because we've also discovered so many different worlds ourselves. Now we receive messages from all over the world, not just the ones we read here on the radio, but we get so many different kinds of messages. And it's something I think we never could have understood if we didn't start this show. I'm really grateful that we get to do radio like this and that there are people listening to us because thanks to you, we can keep sharing so many things. I truly appreciate it so much. From here on out, please keep supporting BABYMETAL and Metaraji too. End Sumetal birthday speech. I wanted to read that in full because, of course, it's Sue's birthday, and what more could we want from a radio show where we get to hear directly from BABYMETAL than to get to hear her speak directly to us the appreciation we always hope she feels as fans, but rarely get to hear her speak so candidly about. This is the type of stuff that made Metaraji so special for fans. So, we do still have a final guest appearance from Arata Metal, but this one will be brief since I wanted to focus on Sumetal for this episode. Arata Metal reveals that he first heard BABYMETAL through Gimme Chocolate on YouTube, like many of us, but he also admits that he has yet to see BABYMETAL live in person, though he has seen the recordings of the live performances. He wants to go, but he's a busy man with his acting schedule. Hopefully by now, he's made it to a show. When it comes time for the question segment at the end, Arata Metal asked BABYMETAL if they had ever heard metal before they started BABYMETAL. Momozilla counts to 3. 1, 2, 3. Nope. Of course, us fans already know this, but Momozilla goes on to describe how they didn't know anything. Nothing. And Moa thinks that had it not been for BABYMETAL, she never would have truly discovered metal at all, since not even their parents really listened to it. The girls continue to credit Metallica as their first real metal awakening band. And with that, we will say goodbye to Furuta Arata-san. And now we only have one more episode in 2025. It is now December 27th, 2025, and episode 52 of Metaraji. Christmas has come and gone, but the girls do still speak a bit on their traditions. Rehearsals calm down a bit, and the girls actually exchange gifts too. Momozilla even mentions that while she doesn't typically spend much time on X, she did enjoy seeing people tweet out their daily lives with the Metaraji hashtag in it. Moving on to today's guest, it is the Ultraman Dyna himself, Takeshi Tsuruno. If you don't know, Ultraman Dyna was a TV show in Japan which was a sequel to the previous Ultraman series, where the hero defends Earth from giant monsters. At least, I think that's the plot. Tell me if I'm wrong. But the girls introduce Takeshi, and they do give him a metal name, but it's Metal no Takeshi-san, which is too long. So I'm going to stick with Takeshi. So as per our standard, the girls ask how Takeshi discovered metal, and he says a friend had him over his house one day and showed him Led Zeppelin, and he thought Western music was so cool. Later on, Takeshi says he was doing music programs and was able to meet Metallica, and he says he actually fainted. Sumetal discusses how she fell in love with metal when she saw Metallica at Summer Sonic 2013, and apparently that is still the last time Metallica has played in Japan. Momozilla then asks Takeshi to tell them the story of how he met Demon KAKKA. So, Takeshi says about 20 years ago he was on a cooking show where Demon KAKKA was a guest. Afterward, there was an after party with karaoke, and Demon KAKKA was here singing in his full getup. Then he goes over to Takeshi and he's like, "Hey, you haven't sung anything this whole time, have you?" So Takeshi was forced to sing, and after, Demon KAKKA says he should really do it. Perhaps he thought he had potential right then and there. Later on, based on Demon KAKKA's encouragement, Takeshi agreed at request of his agency to do a singing contest TV show which he ended up winning, multiple times after multiple invites to return. So that's how his singing career started. And sometime later he even did a radio show right there in Tokyo FM. After signing off with Takeshi, the girls have their typical one-on-one with the audience like they do at the end of every episode, and encourage everyone to stay safe as the flu is going around, and that they'll see them next year. The date is now January 3rd, 2026, a new year for episode 53 of Metaraji. Metaraji has officially been around for one full year, and now BABYMETAL is preparing for their concert Legend Metal 4th at Saitama Super Arena. Ultraman Takeshi returns as the guest for today, and this time, the girls want him to talk more about his music background. Takeshi decides to sing them a song as if he is a cicada. Seriously. I'm going to go ahead and play the audio. Don't worry, you don't need subtitles for this, just know that this is Takeshi doing a cicada impression if the cicada were trying to make a metal song. Run the clip. As you could hear, Su Metal really liked that. So Takeshi says that he started a band called Cicadas, and he would play shows at a place called Anti-Knock, which usually had punk bands with studs and mohawks. And when his band would go up, suddenly the crowd would be all moms. This is because he was Ultraman, and a lot of kids watched Ultraman. And when kids watched it, the moms would watch. And they liked Takeshi because he was young and handsome. Much later, he would be invited by Japanese Metallica cover band to play with them at a live show, which there is video footage of out there. Pretty cool. And also pretty cool that the cover band is officially recognized by Metallica, supposedly. Let's move on to Takeshi's final episode. It is now January 10th, 2026, episode 54 of Metaraji, and the first day of Legend Metal 4th, at Saitama Super Arena. In fact, this episode aired right in the middle of the show. The girls talk about this fact about how the show is currently going on, mention wanting to say some things, but they don't want to give any spoilers since there's still another show on the 11th. So now Takeshi returns for one last episode with BABYMETAL, and as has become tradition, they directly address that it's the final episode early on and reminisce about their time together. In this case, Su Metal says, 2 weeks talking about metal and cicadas. They go a bit more into detail about Takeshi's non-musical career, talking about how he was Ultraman 31 years ago, starting when he was 20, and how he had a radio show right there at Tokyo FM from 2001 to 2005, which they did mention in the first episode with him too, stating that it aired live Monday through Wednesday from 3 a.m. to 5 a.m. And I thought the radio show I used to listen to that started at 5:48 a.m. was early. Takeshi says that he had this segment at the end of the show called Punk Weather Forecast, and the music would kick in like and he would yell the forecast like, "Over here the weather is sunny, have a great day at work." And then the next segment after his would have birds chirping calmly, and the guy would just open up like, "Good morning, I'm Ken Gamada." Later on, Takeshi mentions how BABYMETAL puts lots of Japanese text on screen at shows and asks how the audience reacts to it. Su Metal speaks about how every country is different. In Japan, where people understand Japanese, they usually just shout out the callback parts. But she says overseas people learn the main part and sing that part of the song to the point where Su says she wonders, do I even need to sing at all? And Metal brings up how they display kanji characters for all the lyrics for BMC at shows to the point it has become part of the performance. She believes keeping it kanji instead of romaji keeps it more curious and actually hypes the crowd more. But with that, it's time to say goodbye to Ultraman Takeshi, and the girls close out the show remarking on how impressive it is that Takeshi not only has so many interests, but that he actually pursued all of them. It is now January 17th, 2026, and BABYMETAL has another break between concerts and won't perform again until their tour in Australia starting in March. The episode begins with BABYMETAL looking back on their recent Legend Metal 4th concert series, and Metal remarks that she thinks it is the longest they have been on stage together, just the three of them like that. This week, the girls have a new guest, and it is quite an unexpected one. Neuroscientist Nobuko Nakano, well known specifically for her studies on training your brain to become lucky, and she appears frequently on Japanese TV. She is given the metal name Nico Metal, based on her alter ego Nicole, which she uses for diving. Someone please let me know why someone needs an alter ego for diving. So Nico Metal, being a neuroscientist, you may assume she listens to classical or calm music. But no, she is indeed a metal fan. Speaking about classical versus metal music though, Nico Metal states that there are studies that show that people who enjoy classical music and people who enjoy metal music are actually quite similar. Metal asks Nico Metal what got her into metal music, and she has a pretty different answer than other guests, stating that it was their use of words like schizo, referring to schizophrenia, or other things that made her think, this sounds academic. She felt that the people who went to school with her thought she was kind of weird, which is something I think any metalhead growing up probably felt too. Her first metal album she bought was the now very familiar to you Seikima 2, and she was influenced heavily by Demon KAKKA, and she says his way of words still sticks with her today in her writing. So Momo then asks Nico Metal what caused her to want to become a neuroscientist, and no kidding, her answer involves Metallica. See, Metallica has a song called One, she explains, and the music video for One is actually based on an existing story called Johnny Got His Gun. And that story is about a man who lost his arms and legs in the war, can't even make eye contact, but he desperately tries to communicate with violent head movements. And all of these things are depicted through visuals in the music video. Personally, I remember seeing this music video when I was probably in elementary school, and it is quite a heavy visual, but I mostly just love the heaviness of the song myself. In Nico Metal's case, she saw this and thought, is this what happens when a person is reduced only to their brain? And this made her want to study neuroscience. Nico Metal talks about how she always felt different as a child, and wishes that she could go back and tell herself that being different is important, and that personality differs depending on the music you like. And there are studies that show that even your genes may affect your music taste. So who knows? Maybe there's a metal music gene. This is the point where we got that tidbit about Momo Metal saying, I feel like our kids will definitely love metal, making the fandom suddenly speculate on the prospect of the girls having kids one day. The girls close out the episode with Nico Metal asking her if she's ever considered starting her own band, and she simply says, making it in music is incredibly difficult, and in the end, she chose university because it was the safer choice, if she wanted to live comfortably. This is the episode of Metaraji where BABYMETAL announced they would be releasing a book about Metaraji, which I do own myself. But again, I can't read Japanese. And somehow, I managed to do this video before sitting down to translate that book, even if it just means taking pictures of each page on my phone and translating that way. So Nico Metal, the neuroscientist, returns to Metaraji, and Sue Metal indicates she would like to discuss the relationship between metal music and the brain. Mo Metal brings up that she wrote a book called Metal Brain: Geniuses Prefer Cruel Music. Nico Metal says that the topic of her doctoral research was indeed the relationship between music, language, and the brain. Nico Metal also shares that the widely held belief that listening to Mozart makes you smarter is actually a debunked myth. In actuality, what actually improves people's cognitive ability is listening to music they like, and there is data showing that for high-performing individuals, listening specifically to metal improves results. Nico Metal goes on to share many insights, such as how melodies are picked up by the brain more deeply than lyrics, generally speaking, giving insight into how many people can enjoy BABYMETAL despite not speaking Japanese. She also says that our human ears were literally configured to pick up music first. Music makes us feel things without the need for words. Momo Metal chimes in, noting the background music in shows and movies. To which Nico Metal adds, yes, like when someone is shot and dies in a movie, there's always a piano playing. The music conveys the emotion. This is science. Later in the episode, we get some fun moments, about Momo Metal first, when she gets observed by Nico Metal as being cold. Nico Metal says that oftentimes when you're cold all the time, it is skin conductance, kind of like sweating, meaning you're nervous. So Momo asks, am I nervous all the time? And Momo Metal says, it's cause she likes us. They go on to talk about how Momo is super shy at first, but when she gets comfortable around you, she's like a totally different person. Moa says she's just so loud all the time. Then we get some fun lore about Sue that a lot of us probably already know, but due to the fact that she sometimes speeds up a lot while she talks, she says phrases like nanka, which is like kinda. Sue is a filler phrase person. Her mind is always racing and she is always chatting a lot, but she isn't great at speaking while she is thinking, so she uses filler phrases like that. The next exchange is best if I read it in the manner that they say it. Sue Metal. And I also talk to myself a lot in general. Momo Metal. Yeah, that too. You talk to yourself so much. Moa Metal. To the point of, who are you talking to? Momo. Like, are you on a call? Moa Metal. Seriously, we are always listening to your inner monologue. I'm not going to speculate on whether Sue has it or not, but I have ADHD, and a lot of Sue Metal's traits are ones I identify heavily with and associate with my ADHD, so that's all I'm saying. I know I make a lot of videos about Momo, but I definitely identify with Sue a lot more. But we must move on to the next episode. Episode 57 of Metaraji aired on the final day of January 2026. The girls open up with promoting the Metaraji book and upcoming Metaraji Fest. The girls remark on how they feel like a book announcement was likely unexpected by fans, and yeah, I'd say it was. So then Nico Metal returns as the guest, and Sue Metal asks her, what kind of effect does traveling overseas and performing concerts have on the brain? Nico Metal pivots the question a bit to talk about how they likely use more English when they are abroad, and Nico Metal explains that when we speak different languages, it can actually change our personality. Su Metal then says that she feels that you become close with people much faster overseas, and Momo piggybacks saying that you can be more casual with them. So, as Nico Metal says next, perhaps it's actually the style of communication of non-Japanese people being more casual that actually causes their personalities to change when speaking English rather than the language itself. Then the topic of baby metal singing, mostly in Japanese, comes up, and how people can still resonate so deeply with baby metal despite the language barrier. Nico Metal then suggests that actually, because people listening to baby metal who are not bilingual have to use more effort in connecting with and understanding a song, because of that additional effort, there is a sense of satisfaction. They feel like they are doing something intellectual. So in other words, singing in Japanese has actually strengthened the bond between baby metal and overseas fans rather than hinder it. Then the conversation shifts to choreography when Mo Metal says that sometimes she just forgets a new choreography. The move just disappears from her brain. And Nico Metal explains that motor learning is quite different from something like language learning. And in that case, it's more important to forget the old movement. Then Mo Metal asks Nico Metal if there is a way to use neuromarketing to extend baby metal's reach. And Nico Metal explains that the concept of intermittent reinforcement, a technique often exploited to get people addicted to things like a slot machine. It means that you don't always meet the expectations, sometimes you do, and sometimes you don't. And it keeps people pushing the button. We'll go ahead and close out this episode with Su Metal explaining how each of the girls has a different method of remembering things. To the surprise of no one, she says Mo Metal remembers things from tour based on something delicious that she ate there, and can even remember exactly where the restaurant was. Su Metal says for her, she remembers things through scenery and builds the memory from that. And Momo Metal is constantly nodding along with them because she doesn't actually remember anything. But with that, we must say goodbye to possibly the most interesting guest yet, and move on to the next episode. It is February 7th, 2026, and episode 58 of Metaraji begins. Recently, Baby Metal was actually hosted by Tatsuya Kitani on All Night Japan, where Su Metal played Beyblades with Kitani on video. Not technically Metaraji, but kind of like a mirror dimension. Anyways, back to Metaraji. This is actually the first time in a while we hear the girls read a fan message, so let's take a look. This one is from a Kanagawa office worker who attended the Legend Metal 4th show, and he says he specifically noticed so many overseas fans at this show. And Baby Metal acknowledged that even from the stage, they too could notice that many overseas fans were in the audience moshing together with Japanese fans. I did think it was funny that the person who wrote the letter said he saw about 10 large Europeans crossing a crosswalk, all in the outfits from Song 3. Before we introduce the next guest, Baby Metal caps off their time with their previous guest, Nico Metal, the neuroscientist, saying she did actually go to the Legend Metal 4th show and gave them all umikuji, with hand-drawn foxes on them. Umikuji are those fortune-telling paper strips that are often seen at shrines. Such a cute and personal gift. I love it. So our next guest is Satoh Takeru, an actor known for performing as the live-action Rurouni Kenshin, an anime that was actually on Toonami back in the day. But he has done many other things as well. He actually got invited due to the influence of DAIDAI, who mentioned him by name at the end of his episode a while back. Takeru Metal is an actor. He was at Amuse at the same time as 10K Rock, so he knows people in music through the connection, and the people he met there. The girls ask if he listens much to metal, but he expresses he mostly listens to the people he knows, and he didn't really grow up with metal. But Su, Moa, and Momo all make him feel better by sharing how none of them did either. For instance, their question was, what was your first CD? And the girls say none of theirs were metal either. Su Metal sharing that her first CD was Polyrhythm by Perfume. No surprise there. And Mo Metal points out how in Momo's case, she's too young to really be from the CD generation. But Mo Metal says hers was Kiranin Revolution, which is actually an anime, but she's referring to the songs from it that were sung by idols, some of which were from Morning Mazume, where Riho Sayashi would eventually go. But she wasn't there yet, so she didn't do these songs. We'll have this guest for another couple episodes, so we can move on, but before we close out the episode, I gotta point out that Takeru Metal directly points out in this episode that Baby Metal is way too good at hosting the radio show and specifically says Mo Metal is basically running the whole thing. And yeah, after speedrunning through all of the Metaraji episodes, I can confidently say Mo Metal does by far the most talking. It makes me wonder if that was always the intention or if it just kind of happened that way because that's her personality. It is now February 14th, 2026, Valentine's Day. According to Moa Metal, this is one other holiday besides Christmas that the girls always spend together, no matter what. According to Su-Metal, they'll specifically schedule rehearsals around Valentine's Day to avoid not being able to spend it with each other. And of course, in honor of Valentine's Day, the girls play From Me to You, once again on the show. No, I'm just kidding. They play Gimme Chocolate, because of course they did. So Takeru Metal returns, and while he didn't have much history playing instruments before, he has acted in roles where he played musicians, so he did have to learn some bass and piano, for instance, in the Netflix drama Glass Heart. I always appreciate it when you can tell the actor is actually playing. It's pretty easy to tell when they are, because they'll never show you both the face and hands if it's fake. Metal asks Takeru Metal what his strategy was for learning the instruments on such short notice. And he says that since it was his project, he was able to start practicing a couple years ahead of time, but he still says that at the end of the day, an actor can only portray a professional, not actually become the true professional. Later on, Takeru Metal asks if the girls have ever played instruments live, and Su-Metal brings up her performance of No Rain, No Rainbow while playing the piano at Budokan Doomsday. And Metal excitedly shares that she also has played guitar live before. She also did that thing she does where she said she took guitar lessons when she was little. You know, in the past, when she used to be little. Not now, because she's big now. Not little. Anyway, Metal goes on to describe how she does wish that she could play piano, but finds the movements too confusing. And then, when the conversation shifts to Metal, she says she doesn't really play any instruments. And I'm kind of upset with Momo for lying to us all just now. We all saw her play the kazoo back in 2021 for Girls Planet 999. The kazoo counts, Momo! Just imagine, BABYMETAL performs Ratatata live, but when it comes to the time in the bridge where they all yell Ratatata right before Kevin comes in, instead you see Momo front and center with a kazoo. And instead of hearing the girls chant Ratatata, you hear the kazoo doing the same rhythm, like Come on, Koba, I'm telling you how to sell your stadiums out right now. Please do this. BABYMETAL is still in a break period and won't perform again still for another couple of weeks. But today, for Metaraji, we have Takeru Metal on for his last appearance. And Su-Metal opens up with the question of what type of acting role would Takeru Metal want to do that he hasn't done before. To which he says he wants to do a role with superpowers. What kind of power? Asks Su-Metal. Any kind, says Takeru Metal. Later, Metal says she is very curious if Takeru Metal has ever gotten so absorbed into a role that it changed him in his regular life. He says when he was playing a role as a chef, he would always just have a potato and just roll it. Even when he was doing a radio show, he would have the potato and people would go, "Hey, that guy's holding a potato." And that was his life for a while. He was doing this because he was practicing a specific way to roll a potato while you cut it, a technique called chateau peeling. But Su-Metal is here with the important questions and asks, was it a different potato every day? But Takeru Metal says it was like every 3 days. And Metal says, with the heat, wouldn't it start sprouting on you? But Takeru Metal clarifies, no, it was a cut potato wrapped in plastic. This meant he could still eat it later. Later in the episode, when Takeru Metal gets the chance to ask BABYMETAL things, he asks what they want to do most, whether it be personal or BABYMETAL related. Metal says she wants to perform a show in Egypt, in front of the pyramids. Metal wants to do a Wanko Soba, which is an eating challenge between the three of them, where whoever can eat the most tiny bowls of food wins. This prompts Su-Metal and Metal to share that Metal talks a big game with eating, but when it comes down to it, she's the first to tap out. They bring up this time when they went to a cake buffet, and Metal describes Momo saying that she was like, "Moa-chan, sorry, I can't eat anymore." Su-Metal continues confirming, saying that Momo is the one who boasts the most in the beginning. And Moa continues, saying, yeah, she says stuff like, "I can eat 100. So I guess they really want to see who can actually eat the most. It's funny, sometimes I think I reference the girls and their love for food too often, but they take this seriously. But with that, we gotta wrap up this episode and let Takeru Metal be on his way. So it is now February 28th, 2026, and episode 61 of Metaraji. And in anticipation of Momo's second birthday during the course of Metaraji, they read a letter from a fan wishing her a happy birthday. The girls talk about how they are always together for Momo's birthday due to touring schedules and ask her what she wants to do, but Momo doesn't know yet. Either way, Moa says she'll show up at her doorstep. Today we are welcoming a new guest named Daigo from the band Breakers, and the girls welcome him by joining in a all-in-unison "Wish! Wish!" This is a greeting that is signature to Daigo as his catchphrase and pose, but in Japan, it means like, hey, or what's up. BABYMETAL Tube's notes on these episodes continue to help us out. Speaking of, this is also how I know that Daigo is actually the grandson of a former prime minister and appears on variety shows, so people may know him for things not music related. The girls asked Daigo if he grew up listening to metal, to which he says he did not, but when he was 19 he joined a band and they told him he needs to listen to metal. He says early on he heard Pantera and Korn, who he says are incredible, and I tend to agree with that statement. Daigo eventually started doing some solo music, primarily inspired by David Bowie, which is probably where the Stardust name comes from in his solo work. A few years after his debut, he formed the band Breakers. When it comes time for the girls to ask questions, Momozilla asks if Daigo has any memories that stuck out to him from time in his band. Daigo says the biggest crisis was the bunny ears incident. Daigo explains that they had a tour called the Bunny Love Tour, and during the song Bunny Love, the whole thing was that they'd come out wearing bunny ears at the live show. But in the middle of that, about 15 minutes before the show was going to start, the staff was panicking, saying, "We forgot the bunny ears." Daigo says, "What are we supposed to do? It's the Bunny Love Tour." He realized that they were near a donkey, which is what Japanese folks will call Don Quixote, a popular discount chain store in Japan, and says, "Go to Donkey and buy bunny ears." So they got their bunny ears and played in bunny ears, albeit starting a bit late. And with that story, let's move on to the next episode. It is now March 7th, episode 62 of Metaraji, and BABYMETAL is enjoying their last Metaraji episode before they get back to their vigorous touring schedule, starting in Australia. But Daigo returns for one last appearance, having only time for 2 instead of the usual 3 appearances. When asked about his circle of friends, Daigo first mentions Hyde, who was previously on Metaraji. He thinks incredibly highly of him, calling him a literal god. Hyde has been a true mentor to Daigo over the years. Momozilla then later brings up that, like a few other guests, Daigo also has a Tokyo FM radio show that's been going on for 10 years. Daigo says he really likes how you can be listening to the radio and flip to another channel and just come across something by chance. I guess it's true that far less people rely on radio-style formats to hear things anymore. We all just search for the specific artist, podcast, or YouTube video you want to listen to that day. Daigo later mentions that he actually saw BABYMETAL back in 2013 at Legend Z, and also remembers when the music video for Headbanger came out. Daigo was truly one of the early fans. And with that, I think that's a great stopping point to say goodbye to Daigo. But we move on to an exciting guest appearance. It's March 14th, 2026. BABYMETAL has begun their Australia tour. The music video for their collaboration with Tatsuya Kitani recently dropped, along with them having performed it live. Things are starting to happen again with BABYMETAL. What more could we ask for? Well, I was not expecting this when it happened, but was very excited that they were able to welcome powerhouse vocalist, legendary singer Lisa, who has sang many incredible songs, but my personal favorite being the intro song for the first season of Demon Slayer named Gurenge. Right off the bat in this episode, you can tell Su-Metal and Lisa get along very well, as noticed by Mo-Metal. Lisa begins saying that she was able to see BABYMETAL at Summer Sonic the previous year, and also at the Seikima 2 show. Apparently, Lisa brought them kudamame, which is a sweet, simmered black soybean dish. The girls really appreciated it. Apparently, Lisa and Su-Metal have been meeting in secret for a while now, and not even Momo knew about this, though I think Moa did. Lisa says it's because she wanted to ask her senpai some things before going overseas. Little editor's note from me here. Lisa is going to mention bands throughout this episode, and I'm just going to say now that every band she name drops is a band that was formative or special to me at one point or another, if not still. Musically, I think I relate more to Lisa than any guest on the show so far, and I love her music. Okay, I'm done gushing. Moving on. Lisa says she grew up listening to Paramore and Hey Monday, but the one that really inspired her was Avril Lavigne. She says Avril Lavigne had a pop sound, but with just the right amount of edge that fits with rock that she wanted to go for herself. Lisa goes on to say that as a student, she listened to Story of the Year, Linkin Park, The Used. Sorry, I need a minute. I'm going through a nostalgic spiral right now. Lisa then notes that she first saw BABYMETAL all the way back in 2012 at AFA Singapore, and she denotes how tiny they were back then. Lisa continues to reference bands from my high school and middle school days and has BABYMETAL play the song Letters to You by Finch, a song I had not heard or thought about for like 15 years before I first heard this Metaraji episode. And I did originally listen to this episode when it aired because I heard it was Lisa and was like, dude, this can't wait. After listening to Letters to You, Moa remarks that it makes her think of All Time Low and Green Day. It always makes me smile hearing the girls talk about other bands because there are so many bands to know, you never want to assume they are familiar with all of them. If you're wondering when Lisa really got started with her solo career, Well, she graduated high school, her band broke up, but she thought all she has ever wanted to do was music. So she moved to Tokyo, and in 2010, she was in charge of one of the vocalist parts from Girls Dead Monster in the TV anime Angel Beats, specifically Yui, and landing that role is what got her started. Since then, Lisa started touring, first as Yui, and then as Lisa after that, incorporating the sound she grew up being a part of in her own band into her anime songs and then into her own. We'll stop there for now, but the next episode, we'll see Lisa once more. It is now March 21st, 2026, episode 64 of Metaraji, and Lisa returns as BABYMETAL's honored guest. For this episode, Lisa and BABYMETAL compare overseas stories, both remarking on how much they enjoy the different energy overseas audiences bring to concerts, while still trying to adopt the Japanese culture. Like, for instance, bringing pen lights to Lisa's show. Lisa had just done her first North American tour in 2025, so the experience was fresh for her, having only toured Asia before. Su-Metal then shares with Lisa that when they went to Germany, there was a much more hardcore metal scene, and everyone there was headbanging. But when they went to the UK, they were a bit more gentle. Later in the episode, it's question time, and Lisa draws the question, what gives her energy? Lisa says the phrase, well, I really love food, and Moa and Moa-Metal immediately get excited, which throws Lisa off. I guess she didn't already know that they love food so much too. They all bond over the balance they try to strike between trying new foods overseas, but also missing their food from home, and Moa's stash of instant ramen in her suitcase comes up again. This time she mentions her rice cooker that she brought with her too in her suitcase, but sadly it broke in there. Oh, and apparently Moa-Metal loves mayonnaise, which I was not expecting. I guess I associate mayo with American dishes. Comment below if Moa-Metal loving mayonnaise enough to bring some with her everywhere she goes was not on your 2026 bingo card. I'll close out this final episode with Lisa with a fact I am just now learning about Su-Metal. I already knew Su-Metal loved karaoke, but I did not know that she sings the song Gurenge by Lisa all the time at karaoke. My favorite freaking song. It's settled. My number one wish fulfillment collaboration for BABYMETAL right now is Su-Metal and Lisa on stage together singing Gurenge while Moa and Momo do some killer Demon Slayer inspired choreography. And with that, we reluctantly say goodbye to Lisa, though I'm sure Sue will see her again soon on one of their secret visits. Let's move on to the very final episode of Metaraji. This is it, folks. The date is March 28th. BABYMETAL's done with their Australia tour, and they will be putting on their special Metaraji Fest concert tomorrow. The girls open up with the final episode, making it clear there will be no guests today, and it will be just the three of them. Just like their debut episode. The girls reminisce about the show and all the friends they've made and the messages they've read from fans, and also talk about some of the details of the Metaraji book that they have in front of them in the studio. They remark on how seeing the book in front of them makes it feel real. BABYMETAL then reads the last messages that will ever be read on Metaraji, and one of them is from someone I was able to reach out to and include in this video. Her name is Emily. And this is what her message said, as read by Moa-Metal. Amazing! I can't believe the radio show is already ending. It makes me so sad. Last year I started using X, and thanks to that I was able to connect with other fans who listened to the show. And that way I met so many wonderful Metatomo. Now I have friends all over the world. I was able to meet some of them at the Regent Theater and Intuit Dome shows in Los Angeles. And when I went to Japan for the first time this January to see Legend Metal 4th. Thank you so much for sharing such an important part of your lives with us. I'm excited for your next big project. See you! So like I said, I reached out to Emily, or Glemily as she's known on X, and she was gracious enough to provide the following contribution for this Metaraji video, telling us how the reading of her message affected her.
Hi, I'm Emily. My message was read on the last episode of BABYMETAL's radio show, and it was a really crazy experience because the radio show episode aired, in the evening in Japan, which is the middle of the night for me in Los Angeles, California. So I was probably the last person to find out about my message getting read. I woke up to my phone getting completely spammed by messages on Discord and Twitter, and it was just such an exciting moment of realization. I didn't think it was real at first, and when I realized, oh my gosh, it's real, and they read my name and blew those kisses, I was like, oh my goodness, this is so much for me. Yeah, I think my message resonated because it really speaks to the community that comes together from us Baby Metal listeners and enjoyers. You know, when you go outside and when you talk to people in the real world and you go to these concerts and everyone comes together, it's just the greatest thing. My Japan vlog, me traveling to Saitama Super Arena for Legend Metal 4th, video will be out soon, so please check it out and you'll be able to experience the same excitement that I talk about in my message. Thank you very much. Thanks, shout out to BABYMETAL for hitting me up. So lovely talking to you guys. See you!
We will soon close this whole video out with the final statements of Sue, Moa, and Momo at the end of their final episode. But before that, I just want to give some general thoughts about the entire Metaraji run. Firstly, I had probably only caught originally like less than 10 total episodes of Metaraji before doing this video. It had been on my list for a long time to get caught up, and it just never happened until now. Let me just list off a few of my favorite moments. First off, hearing the behind the scenes about when BABYMETAL had to be rushed off stage in 2024 during the Download Festival, only to be rushed back out. Sue Metal is still probably the most entertaining storyteller. Second, of course, the tour bus just forgetting about the girls and driving off. Like, seriously, how does that happen? Also, I really enjoyed when Maximum the Hormone was on and now reminisced about grappling with Rio because he wouldn't make more rice. I could go on, but so many moments were so funny. If I were to say which guests were ultimately my favorite, they were all great, and this could change. But right now, I'll say my top 3 were Lisa, Maximum the Hormone, and Nico Metal the Neuroscientist. Probably in that order, and all for different reasons. But there were so many great guests and so many great moments. Whether it was finding out that there's an anime with BABYMETAL references made by a BABYMETAL fan, hearing about Hana Metal from Macaroni Enpitsu's plan to meet Yoshi Metal in a subtle way, fail miserably only to have him chase him down, Ribbon Metal sharing all of her heartwarming and also relatable motherhood moments, or Maximum the Hormone having a literal rainbow form behind their stage, as told by Ma from Sim. Metaraji was an absolute blast. I truly hope that one day we get something like this again. If we do, I will keep up with it this time. A last special thanks so much to BABYMETAL Tube for doing all these translations and allowing me to use so much of this material to make this video. Thank you so much, man. Now let's close this last episode out with the individual statements from Sue, Moa, and Momo that they ended the show with. Momo. To everyone who listened to Metaraji, to all our listeners, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. And thanks to Metaraji, I was able to make so many metatoma, talk with them about all kinds of things, hear so much about music, and truly every single time was an amazing moment that I looked forward to with so much excitement. It makes me really sad, but tomorrow we're going to make Metaraji Fest an amazing concert, so please look forward to it with lots of excitement. Moa. Thank you so much, truly, for being with us through this year and 3 months. I feel like concerts are very much an out-of-the-ordinary kind of experience, and we often live inside that non-everyday world. And BABYMETAL was all about people coming to visit us in that extraordinary space and sharing beautiful experiences together. Being able to join you at dinner time, being able to show up there even if it was only through our voices, made me feel like we got a little closer. Like after such a long time, we'd finally made friends again. And not just with our metatoma. I also felt like I became friends with the listeners. So I truly love this time so much. From now on, I'd be so happy if you came to our concerts, and if a place like this ever exists again someday, I'd love to come back anytime. So I'd be really happy if you'd wait for us again. Alright then, I'll close out. Sue Metal here. When I first heard that we were going to do radio, I honestly felt a lot of anxiety. Like Moa Metal was saying a little while ago, as BABYMETAL, we live a lot on that outside the everyday side. At first, I was a little worried, thinking, what if that breaks the image people have of us? But first of all, just knowing that you enjoyed simply listening to the 3 of us talking together and receiving messages from people saying it made them happy to hear our voices in an everyday kind of setting because they normally don't get to hear us like that, felt really fresh to me too. And above all, thanks to the messages we received through this program, I felt much closer to all of you. Even when we saw each other at concerts, people would say, "You read my message on Metaraji," and other fans would go out of their way to tell us things like, "She's the Metaraji girl," and all of that really made me feel everyone's warmth again. Very deeply. And also, as you can see, a lot in this Metaraji book too, I got to meet so many different people. People of all kinds of ages, with completely different backgrounds and interests. I thought, can people really become this close? Can you really hear stories this interesting? And I learned so much too. That metal really is an incredibly broad world, and that there is still so many things I don't know yet. That's why I feel like I myself was able to grow a lot through Metaraji too, and it makes me really happy that I was given this opportunity. But I feel like through this radio show, you were also able to feel a little bit of BABYMETAL's everyday side, and in turn, we were able to learn what feelings you bring with you when you come see us live. So I think we were able to grow closer. So if an opportunity like this comes around again, until then, I hope you'll keep supporting BABYMETAL. So this has been BABYMETAL Metaraji. I hope we can meet again someday.